remembrance of September 11th, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, City Clerk. If you'll please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Here.
Commissioner Frizzlowski.
Here.
Commissioner Marone.
Here.
Commissioner Grouse.
Here.
Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I know we have a lot of people here tonight, and just so that we make sure we all know what the procedure and what the order of events is tonight. So first, we have our annual budget meeting, which is going to take some time. And then once the budget meeting concludes, we will move forward with our regularly scheduled commission meeting and agenda. And just so that everyone, if you haven't been here before, I'm going to ask you to silence your cell phone, please. And then also only one person at a time, whoever's at the podium, at the microphone will be speaking. So if we have any comments from the audience, if you haven't submitted paperwork, please do so now. When it's your turn, you will have 3 minutes uninterrupted to speak, say your piece. And we're going to ask everyone else that you respect the person speaking. So no cheering, no booing, no clapping. Just let them take their time. And once again, please silence your cell phones. Thank you. City Manager?
Sheila.
Sheila.
We have a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Frizzlowski.
Yes.
Commissioner Marone.
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have two ordinances that I must read in their entirety, and typical procedure is that I read both of them. And then after I read them into the record, that's when your CFO will come up and present. And then there will be two separate motions, one on the millage and then one on the budget. So I'm going to start with Ordinance 2023-11, which is the millage. An ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, establishing the millage rate for fiscal year 2024, beginning October 1, 2023, and ending September 30, 2024, providing and announcing the name of the taxing authority, the rolled back millage rate, the percentage increase over the rolled back millage rate, and the millage rate to be levied, providing for reading in its entirety and providing for an effective date. Whereas Florida Statutes Section 200.065 requires the adoption of the millage rate by separate vote prior to the adoption of the annual budget. Whereas Florida Statutes Section 200.065 requires that prior to adoption of the millage levy ordinance, the following be publicly announced: the name of the taxing authority, the rolled back millage rate, the percentage increase over the rolled back millage rate, and the millage rate to be levied. Whereas in no event may the millage rate adopted exceed the millage rate tentatively adopted. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, hereby ordains: Section 1, the name of the taxing authority is the City of St. Pete Beach. Section 2, the rolled back millage rate for fiscal year 2024 is 2.7327. Section 3, the fiscal year 2024 proposed millage rate is 15.27% higher than the rolled back rate. Section 4, the millage rate to be levied for fiscal year 2024 shall be 3.1500 mils per $1,000 of taxable value. Section 5, this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon adoption. Ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2024, beginning October 1, 2023, and ending September 30, 2024, providing for the incorporation of the adopted capital budget as the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan, providing for reading its entirety, and providing for an effective date. Whereas Florida Statutes Section 166.241 requires the adoption of a budget each fiscal year, parent FY. Whereas the amount available from taxation and other sources, including balances brought forward from prior years, must equal the total appropriations for expenditures and reserves. Whereas the adopted budget must show for each fund, as required by law and sound financial practices, budgeted revenues and expenditures by organizational unit which are at least at the level of detail required for the annual financial report required under Florida Statutes Section 218.32, parent 1. Whereas the adopted budget must regulate expenditures of the municipality, and an officer of a municipal government may not expend or contract for expenditures in any fiscal year except as pursuant to the adopted budget. Whereas the City of St. Pete Beach fiscal year 2024 budget is balanced, is presented at the level of detail required to file the annual financial report, and shall regulate expenditures of the city for the period beginning October 1, 2023 and ending September 30, 2024. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida hereby ordains Section 1, the fiscal year 2024 budget document attached hereto as Exhibit A, parent the budget, is adopted by reference and is made part of this ordinance. Section 2, upon adoption of the budget, the capital improvement element of the city's comprehensive plan is hereby updated to reflect the fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2028 capital improvement plan. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon final adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before Sheila starts, yeah, and she's, I just wanted to recap for the audience all of the work that has gone into the budget process, because tonight is a combination of many, many different meetings that have been happening since March of this year. The departments all collaborated in putting together the proposed budget. The proposed budget has been reviewed twice by the Budget Advisory Committee. One meeting they reviewed the operating budget, and one meeting they reviewed the capital budget. And the Budget Advisory Committee has recommended approval of this budget. The City Commission has also met multiple times in different workshops to review the different aspects of the budget. Where again, you guys have reviewed the capital budget separately, the operating budget, and had other special workshops to discuss other portions of the budget. So while the audience might see the process of approving the budget as a very simple, straightforward process today, there have been many, many hours of review, questioning and debate as to the right level of budgeting that we have. The proposed budget is set at 3.15, which is basically the same millage that we have had in prior years. One of the important things that Sheila is going to walk you through is there are different levels of approval that you need for different levels of millages, and we're going to cover that with you. As Amber indicated in the ordinance, the millage has to be set first. Depending on what millage you adopt, if you adopt the current millage, the budget is balanced to the current millage, but any reductions in the current millage then will have to be incorporated into the budget when we do that ordinance and prior to approval of that ordinance. If you approve that reductions in the millage, we can identify specific projects tonight, or simply say, by the time that we get to second hearing, we need to have identified X amount that matches the amount generated by the proposed millage. In separate items that you have on your regular agenda, there are companion items that, pursuant to state law, the budget hearing can only deal with the budget and the millage, but those items are necessary to also make the budget work. There are increases in parking fees, there are increases in reclaimed water fees, and increases in sewer fees that will be dealt with in the agenda that follows the budget agenda. Any changes on those from the proposed numbers will also need a modification to the budget prior to second hearing. The second hearing is scheduled for Saturday, May 23rd, and that is when the final numbers will be approved. So with that intro, Sheila?
I think it's Saturday, September 23rd.
What did I say?
May.
Oh, yes, yeah, that September, yes, sorry about that. Thank you for clarifying the record, September 23rd. Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay. So as stated, our current millage rate is 3.15 mils per $1,000 of taxable value. So as stated, the budget is based on that millage rate, which generates $2,010,788 in new revenue, which is a 16% increase in property values. The rolled back millage rate represents the tax rate needed to generate the same total revenue in fiscal year 2024 as it did in fiscal year 2023. And the city's proposed millage rate of 3.15 is 15.27% higher than the rolled back millage rate of 2.7327. So a rate in excess of 110% of the rolled back rate based on the previous year's maximum millage rate, adjusted for any change in per capita Florida personal income, may be adopted if approved by a unanimous vote of the membership of the governing body. So the city's majority vote maximum millage rate allowed is 2.8103. The city's supermajority millage rate is 3.0913. And the difference between that is if we adopt the 3.0913 millage rate, we would decrease the budget by $271,410. If we adopted the 2.8103 millage rate, we would reduce the budget by $1,570,663.
So if the millage rate stays the same, we'll have additional revenue of $2 million.
Right, and that's currently what you see in the proposed budget.
Right. So last year, we had a $1.3 million surplus, budgetary surplus. Does this either way, so is this $2 million plus $1.3 million? Or is it just an additional $2 million above last year's budget?
It's to $2 million above last year's budget.
Right. Now,
I mean,
yeah, let me help you there, because every year we have, at the end of the year, a reconciliation of revenue versus expenses. So the $1.3 million that you're referring to is what happened in the prior year. That basically gets reappropriated every year and pays for additional projects. This year, we're expecting a surplus, again, of about $1 million when we close the fiscal year. That money, come December, January, you'll have the option of putting it back into projects, or you can basically let it roll into the fund balance. So it basically goes to increase your fund balance. But annual surpluses are not recurring revenues. They're simply basically they do capital projects, or they go into fund balance for that. So I hope that helps you, with more specifics as to how they get treated.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, may?
Commissioner Grill?
One of the things I don't think we have discussed, and we need to discuss, is philosophically what we're trying to do with this year's budget. I mean, the numbers are the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I see that we've got $2 million additional from the property taxes. We're going to talk about the parking increases for visitors. I think, if I remember, it says another $800,000. If we pass those, we have another $800,000 in revenue.
Right.
We're still sitting on about $4 million in ARPA funds, which, given our size, no one's asking back. So we seem to be flush with money. So the question is, in an environment that we're in, the economic environment, are we doing? We always do the right thing, but is there something we can do to give back, and should we be giving back by reducing the millage rate? Because we've got, we're in an inflationary period. We have no control over that. We've got, and I'm thinking from a residential view, residents of St. Pete Beach, which all of us are.
Mm.
We've got an insurance industry that's driving people to take risks that I think they shouldn't take, but if the economic reality, some people foregoing insurance because insurance rates continue to rise, people keep getting dropped. utility rates are going up. Electricity rates, as we all know, are going one direction. And given the heat that we had this summer, people feel the pinch. So we're keeping the millage rate flat, and that's great. So I think this is our 5th or 6th year in a row that our millage rate is flat. But should we be reducing the millage rate, and remember, just for all of us, when we write our tax bill, the St. Pete Beach portion is 3.15 of total. There's about eight or 10 other line items that make up about the 15 or so percent, I think, that we pay. But this is something that we have direct control over. Yes, we can talk to our state legislators, we can talk to our county legislators, but we've been talking on these issues for some time. I think my personal view, there's some items in the capital budget that have been there for years. I don't think we should be going after all 30 some odd items that are in there. I think there's some nice to haves. They're all nice to have, but there's some things that we really need to get done. And there's others that if they don't get done, I don't know if there's much of an impact. But spending money is always easy. But just given the environment, is this one where we should roll back? I think, Sheila, you mentioned if we go back to 3.0 something, it's $273K. That's it's a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah, and to that, I will tell you that we're not what we were 5 years ago. Okay, 5 years ago, we had critical infrastructure issues that needed to be addressed. We are getting from critical to less critical infrastructure issues. And there are things that still need to get done. But I think we are now getting into situations where the Commission has a lot more discretion into projects that may be able to be deferred for a year or two. So considering all that, I think the 3.09 number is very doable. And we can probably find projects that just because of the natural flow on the timing of the projects, we can probably work them into the budget without having really any critical project being deferred. So I think that number is very doable. If you want to go to the 2.8 number and $1.5 million, then we're talking about seriously scrapping, some projects in the capital area that might begin to impact, infrastructure that we should be doing. We all talked about in the workshop before that seawalls need to be done. They don't need to be done tomorrow, but you can't forget also that they need to be done because you don't want to wait until they're so bad that they create other problems. You all saw what happened in Pasadena, where with the water pressure, there were so many cracks in the seawall that the pavers basically got pushed out because of the water pressure. But we have the Pasadena seawall in our budget already allocated. So I think this commission is in going into fiscal year 24 in a much better position than we were before, where you don't have to be grabbing every penny that you need because the infrastructure efficiencies were so bad that need to be addressed. So from the management perspective, I think we can find the 273 it is in capital projects that we still meet your budget number if that's what the commission wants to do.
Commissioner Marin?
Yeah, thank you. I echo Vice Mayor's sentiments. But for the benefit of the residents, I asked the city manager this question right after our storm event. And I'd like the residents to hear this so they feel some level of comfort. My initial concern after that storm was we've got big problems that need to be fixed. Where are we going to get the money? What happens if we can't rely on the state, the county? So I turned to the city manager and said, is this something that we should now start thinking about? Hey, we need to have some extra money budgeted in case we have to go it alone. So I'll turn it over to the city manager so that you can speak to the residents on that issue.
Yeah, the damage to the city infrastructure, I would put it in two different groups. The actual facilities and projects that got damaged were either very minor or things that we're already thinking of doing, like the Pasadena seawall and all of the sidewalks around there is already a project that was contemplated to be done. So that we're going to get help from FEMA, and some of the projects were already funded anyway. The big question, and it's on your district, so I know where you know, it is the loss of the dune system south of 6th Avenue, where it goes from partial destruction to total destruction of the dune system, and the replenishment of the dune system and the accompanying sand that has to be in front of the dune system to protect the dune system. At the meeting on last week, the Army Corps of Engineers said that those projects normally are covered 100%. However, the big thing is still the fact that they do them by segments, and until the segment is fully compliant, is the word that they use, they will not go forward with the remediation. So the same way that we've been kind of stuck with the lack of beach renourishment because of some easements on the Upper Beach side are 100% normally covered, remediation is in jeopardy. I don't think that any play in the millage, 273,000, are going to really make a difference one way or the other on that big number. The county estimated that costs somewhere between 10 and 12 million. And we need to just keep an eye on the ball on that, because it is going to be a big number, but I don't know that really is something that our budget is large enough to begin contemplating doing it alone. So,
Okay. Thank you for speaking to that. That's all I have. Thank you.
I would just add that I think if we're going to lower the millage, we ought to be looking at what specific projects that we're not going to do before we just pick a number. The other thing is that with these property value increases, almost all residents, I would think, are homestead exempted. So the maximum they can go up is 3%. So I just want people to keep that in mind. You're not necessarily saving our residents those dollars because they're at 3%. It's newer homeowners, commercial properties, and those that are paying the big increase. Not to belittle it, I'm not who's paying it, but it's just something that homestead exemption has helped a lot of residents for a lot of years. The longer you've been here, the better, more protected you've been with your property taxes.
Well, just one quick comment. I mean, I've attended several of the district community meetings that we've had for all the districts, and it seems like people want more police protection out here on the beach. They want more and better code enforcement, and we're also looking at, they want their streets fixed faster. They want public works projects done faster. I don't know if by going to a lower millage rate we're going to be able to afford to keep up the services that people expect.
I know we're going to talk about it later, but the $800,000 additional projected revenue from the increase in the parking rates, is that already factored into
yes,
the $2 million increase? Okay.
the two plus the 800.
Yeah. And then we also have the additional 3 part-time parking enforcement officers.
The additional 3 parking, yeah, they're there, and the money for the police, the additional 250 is also there.
So what is the projected increase in parking tickets revenue from those 3 additional?
Correct. Right.
So that's already all budgeted?
All part of the mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have capacity for more parking enforcement?
I wouldn't.
Just to Commissioner Grill's point, right? We're, we have an asset, it's our beach, and maybe it's time that we pass on the burden of that to the people that, whether it's parking enforcement, tickets, and so on. And we'll look at that increase here in a little bit, but I think even St. Pete reduced their millage rate And they're not known for doing that at all. I mean, I think we've had this exact same conversation, to your point earlier, at least the last 4 or 5 years. We've had the same arguments every year. Yes, we have more revenue, so we're going to spend more. Yes, we have a huge surplus, but we'll just figure out how to eat up that surplus. Especially in the current economic environment, we need to look at maybe rolling some back and giving some back to the residents in the community. And if we need to look at how can we make up that $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 difference by, if we go up another 25 cents an hour on the parking meters. There's ways to offset that without costing the residents and deferring that burden on the people that cause a lot of the traffic congestion and so on.
Yeah, to Commissioner Marron's, my suggestion would be that if we're going to reduce the millage by the 273,000 required for the 3.09, we can we have created an innovation fund for 200. We can take 100 out of that. We have in Egan Park, we have 900. We can take 100 out of that. And then, assuming everything goes well with the PSTA reduction, that's another $86,000. The combination of those three numbers, and we'll make the exact numbers match the budget, I think those are fairly painless reductions that can basically make us match the required budget number.
Commissioner Grant?
No, and I was going to say that, and our parks are important. We like our parks, but we have $900,000. We baked in every capital plan, assuming we do every capital plan in the packet. We haven't gone through that to prioritize what we think is a commission and the spending. $900,000 on a park, and I like Egan Park, and I go there all the time, and I'm just using it as an example because it's a big ticket item. We don't have that many. It's $900,000 in 1 year. If we cut $275,000 out of that, would we be any worse off? I don't think so. So we seem to have a lot of money going in. If we did nothing new, I know we have to spend some of the additional funds we have on salary increases and costs are going up, and right, just to keep us flat where we are. So I don't know of the additional funding that we're getting, what part is to keep us just whole to where we are today on September 11th, starting in the next fiscal year, versus what's the delta? Because we got a lot of money in here that's, to me, that I see as delta.
Yeah, but remember that embedded in the budget, there are significant increases in police, $250,000. We added a lot of resources on the fire department. We added a deputy plus 3 firefighters, which basically round numbers has another $400,000. We put in the money for the comp plan, that I think is $350 that we put for that, right? So so there, and those are just three numbers that add up to $1 million. So there are
Understood.
There are things that are there embedded into the budget that are consuming some of that growth.
But on the law enforcement, the $250, that's in a contingency line. That's not part of the base contract.
Correct, but I believe that the expectation from the commission and from the community is that it is going to be spent. That that the resources are needed there. Yeah, you can always pull back.
As needed. Yeah. Okay. Fine. No. Yes, there are plenty very important projects.
Right.
And we've got to look at them and prioritize, because I don't think we're going to do 30 capital projects next year.
But it seems from what the city manager is saying, we can do the rollback without impacting any capital projects.
Not the rollback rate, the rollback to 3.09.
3.913. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm good with that. I mean, I do agree with Commissioner Grouse, though. There are with plenty of needs too. I mean, everybody wants to save money, and I'm all about being fiscally responsible. But at the same time, even this last storm, and we show how vulnerable we are. We all knew it, but we're just so close. And my district, District 3, just happens to be probably the lowest district. So we had lots of homes that were flooded. We got issues that we got to deal with, and all that takes a lot of money. And but I'm good with the direction we're going in, 3.0913. I think we're fortunate to be in the financial shape that we're in, And we still have a lot of money put away in terms of the unreserved, undesignated fund balance. So, I mean, if we ever really get hit with a catastrophe, we're actually, in good shape to be able to deal with those types of things. And luckily, we averted one a couple weeks ago, but we got a long way yet to go in hurricane season. So I'm good with that.
So you're going to change on the budget to get that.
When we get to the budget ordinance piece, because we had to do the adopt the millage first.
You want me to make a motion for approval? I
Someone will
will.
make a motion?
Yeah,
Hold on, if you give me 1 second. Sheila, what is the percentage grow over the rollback rate with the 3.0913
The percentage growth from that?
from the rollback rate? Because we had to read that into the
Put that
record.
into
Yeah,
the
it's got to
record.
be put in the record. So basically, you have to compute the proposed millage rate, which you've already done,
Right,
and publicly announce the percentage
increase from the rollback.
rate in which it exceeds the rollback rate, right?
Correct. Do you need a minute for that?
I don't have that offhand. I don't-
Okay, you need,
Let's calculate that.
In the meanwhile,
No pressure.
yes.
City Clerk, do we have any public comments? Okay.
Yeah, it's a public hearing, so.
That's what I'm saying. I asked, while we calculate, we could
Correct.
hear the public comments if
Yeah.
we had any.
And so this will be the rate that you hear at your final, and you can't go higher. You're not allowed to go any higher from that. So you're locked in on this.
Andrea, what is the motion to approve 2023-12?
Yeah, so it's going to be the ordinance.
Yeah, but I don't have it in my packet. It's not supplied.
Yeah. I'll get it for you. It's 2023-11.
With the articulated millage rate.
Right. Yeah, with the millage rate that you guys have
Okay.
agreed to.
So just for future purposes, I'd recommend when we're having a budget workshop, we have this discussion so it doesn't put staff in a position.
All right, it
I
is,
mean, I know we talked about, the concept, but
Yep.
we could have had this portion of it at the end of the last budget meeting.
right, it is 14.57% higher than the rolled back millage rate.
Okay.
Good. Let me borrow the calculator. I'll do it, I'll double check it. We don't want to make a
Yeah,
mistake.
no, it's important to take a few minutes here and make sure, because it's all by statute, how you have to handle this.
Sheila?
The three items.
The number.
Okay.
The number to get the budget. That's -12. 2023-12, that's that ordinance.
Okay.
But it'll be as amended.
have it. So the increase over the rollback rate will be 13.12%. So that's the number that you need to read, Commissioner Moran.
You want to make a motion? You want me to?
Yeah, it's a motion to approve ordinance 2023-11.
Right, with a revised millage rate of,
Rate of 3.0913 with the rollback rate of
which is 13.12 higher than the rollback rate.
13.1.2 higher than the rollback rate.
Okay.
I'll second that.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Fryslowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yeah. Now we need a motion to amend the budget.
Okay.
Okay. And the budget is being reduced, give us like the exact number, Sheila, by
The
$273,
exact number is $271,410.
$410, right? And the budget is being approved as amended as follows. $100,000 will be reduced from the Innovation Fund, and $171,410 will be reduced from Egan Park, which later on could be partially offset if the PSTA reduction goes forward. Then we can put that $86,000 back into the Egan Park. But that basically gives you a rebalanced budget.
Okay. So this is ordinance 2023-12. I'll go ahead and make a motion on that. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-12 with a revised budget, which reduces the budget by $100,000 from the Innovation Fund and $171,410 for Egan Park.
Correct.
Second.
Any discussion?
The question I had, do those specific reductions, are they required by statute to be decided now? Or-
You can modify them later on. What statute requires is that you have a balanced budget. Right. So at the second hearing, if you don't like that distribution, that you can change that.
Peace.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Fryslowski,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Public comment? Is there any public comment?
He did.
We did?
He did ask for comment. There was nobody.
That's on the record, right? Ask for public comment? Yeah.
Okay.
Who's here for the budget?
Does this conclude our budget portion of?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. This concludes the budget portion of the meeting, and we'll be moving on to the regular scheduled commission meeting. Okay. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. I would like to add a discussion and action on the city manager. So I know we don't have a topic on action items, but I'm okay with putting it under 6 as long as it's a discussion and action.
6B.
Did you move that to item 7, as 7B? Is that what I heard? I'm sorry.
6B?
6B? Okay.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I'd like to move action request 5A up to just prior to 4, since we have a room full of folks here.
Yes,
Any objections?
and I will request that after item 5A, we deal with the discussion of the city manager's contract.
Okay.
So I'm hearing we're going to do audience comments on non-agenda item. 3, consent, have that approval. Then we're going to do resolution conditional use permit. Then we're going to do city manager. Is that what I'm hearing?
And I have
Oh, and one more
I have
change, I'm sorry. We are deferring item 5B because the chairperson of the Chamber of Commerce is out sick and couldn't be here tonight. She wanted to be here for this item.
Commissioner Grill?
I'd like to pull item 3A out of consent and add it to the action, as an action item number, whatever the city clerk deems is the number we're on. 'Cause I lost track. I have a couple of questions on it that we like to get some clarification on.
That'll be 5G. If we can add for either as a discussion or just as a report, an update on where we are with the survey of the Paso Grille beaches, the closures, the overlays, just so that we can give residents an update on where we are with that and what our plan is going forward.
I don't have an update ready for that, and Mike is not here today. Mike has some damage in his house, so
Yeah.
he's not here today. So I'll send you a report that you can later on share with you, because I don't have an updated report.
And I'd like to add, just as I always do, a brief discussion item on city manager expenses.
That'll be
As a
6C.
discussion item, yeah.
B, Mayor.
All right, do we have any other changes? Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved?
Second?
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries. I have no audience comment cards on non-agenda items. All my cards are specific.
Thank you. So then our first item is going to be 5A. Resolution 2023-8, conditional use permit 23034.
Okay, I'm going to read the title of this, and then anybody who wishes to speak, whether you've filled out a card or not, if you think that you're going to speak, I'm going to swear everyone in, and I need you to stand when that happens. Resolution 2023-08, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, approving a conditional use permit pursuant to Section 15.4 of the Land Development Code to allow the continued use of a commercial Class A dock addition and for the establishment of an area for the playing of outdoor live music at 2007 Paso Grille Way, incorporating the conditions outlined herein and providing for correction of scrivener's error and an effective date. So if you plan to address the City Commission tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you're about to give or present to the City Commission tonight is truthful?
Yes.
I do? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk. City Manager? Sorry, City Attorney? ex parte?
Yes, so this is quasi-judicial, as you know. The commission, if you have had any ex parte communications outside of this hearing, like communications with neighbors, received emails, just, generally state that on the record, so that it cures any presumption of prejudice.
I've received emails through the clerk's office. I have spoken to residents. I have spoken to the applicant. I've spoken to the applicant's manager. I've spoken to code enforcement. I've spoken to our COO. I have spoken to law enforcement.
I have received emails and I have talked to residents.
I've received emails through the city clerk's office individually, read comments on social media, and have had discussions with some residents.
I've also received emails and read comments on social media.
I have also received many emails and spoken to quite a few residents as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Brandon Berry, City Planner. Ryan, could we bring up the staff report or staff presentation? Thank you. Okay, so tonight's case is conditional use permit case number 2303, resolution 2023-08 for Red, White, and Booze at 2007 Paso Girl Way. The owner is Column Properties LLC with agent applicant Tim Weber and Kyle Bass. This is the two-part request as amended to allow for the continued use of an approximately 20 by 48 foot Class A commercial dock addition used for dining and drinking that was erroneously approved without a conditional use permit. This is a request pursuant to Land Development Code Section 15.4M. Second part of the request is to establish an area to play live outdoor music on the aforementioned outdoor dining and drinking deck. This is a request from Land Development Code Section 15.4N. Here's a brief application timeline. The application was submitted originally on May 5th. It went to the Technical Review Committee on May 17th. At the end of June, June 29th, the applicant amended their application to request additional outdoor music permissions, which I'll go over in a moment. On July 6th, the city rescinded the Class A dock permit, that's permit 2201094, under determination that it should have come to the City Commission prior to permitting. On July 24th, the applicant amended their application to request approval for the aforementioned erroneously permitted Class A dock permit. On August 9th, there was a second technical review committee to review the amended application. Starting on August 25th, ending September 1st, staff followed the code to advertise on the site. That included sending mailings to 89 properties within 500 feet, posting a legal ad in the newspaper, and posting a sign at the site. As of approximately 3 o'clock today, we received 56 total emails or letters. There were 7 letters that specifically recommended or mentioned opposition to the request, 29 letters that requested modification or expressed some general concern, typically dealing with decibel levels or length of time. There were 11 letters of support and 9 letters that were more comments than one way or another. Here's a listing of exhibits. An aerial map of the property. It's located at the southeast corner of Paso Girl Way and 21st Avenue. The owner also owns a parking lot on the west side of Paso Girl Way. It's not subject to this application tonight. None of the development is taking place on that parking lot, but it is part of the lot's parking. Here's a zoning map of the property. The restaurant itself has a zoning of CG1. CG1 is a medium-intensity commercial district. It allows for uses such as restaurants, commercial recreation, retail, hotels, and other uses of that intensity. The parking lot is zoned ROR, and it's within the Paso Girl overlay. Here's the site plan of the property showing the dock request, as well as the tented musician area that's the subject of this request. This is from the survey. As I mentioned, the dock had been built last year. There was a permit issued for the dock, so it is present on the site currently. And you can see that there, the 20 by approximately 48-foot dock area in green, as well as a tented musician area in the northwest corner. So the first request, again, is to expand a commercial Class A dock. A commercial dock is classified in one of four ways, and a Class A dock specifically is any dock used in connection with, in this case, a restaurant, where the slips are not rented, leased, or sold, but utilized as an enhancement to the principal function of the basic facility. All expansions of commercial Class A docks require a conditional use permit. It's not just for newly built commercial Class A. Any expansion, any extension requires a conditional use permit. A permit to expand the dock with new decking was erroneously approved without a conditional use permit in May 2022. It was revoked in July of this year. You can see on the right side of the screen, in green, the two new proposed areas that were permitted at that time. At the time, the permit description did not allude to the new decking being used for seating. However, outdoor seating without music is permitted as a permitted use in the zoning district. It's the dock itself that requires the conditional use permit. So unless there was some condition tonight prohibiting seating on the deck, it would be permitted if the dock were to be approved. Moving on to the second request. The second request is for outdoor music to be played, specifically amplified live outdoor music in the dining and drinking area that was just mentioned. The city's code classifies outdoor music as any area that contains equipment, whether it's permanent or temporary, that is dedicated to the playing of amplified music, and or an area that's permitted to host the playing of musical instruments. So even if there isn't electronic amplification in an area, if it's newly established, there is a requirement for a conditional use permit to be obtained, even if it were to just be acoustic or some other kind of non-amplified music. As I mentioned, the applicant, as of the end of June, had amended their request. They're requesting the following parameters for approval of outdoor music: to be able to play a variety of instruments, including percussion, keyboard, guitars, string instrument, and electric within the outdoor music area, to operate between the hours of 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. each day. That would also entail occasional special events where the extension would be to 11 p.m. They're requesting both solo and band performances, and that they mentioned that their amplification equipment is currently brought by visiting musicians. It's not permanently installed on the site. The city has two major standards related to noise in its code of ordinances. The first is fairly straightforward. It's maximum decibel level limitations. The second is the loud and raucous noise prohibition. So as I mentioned, the decibel standards are fairly straightforward. Anywhere in the city outside of a particular property from which a noise source is produced, the maximum receiving level any time of the day is 65 decibels. That's about the decibel level of a normal conversation standing a few feet away from one another. It's a little bit louder than a normal office, a little bit quieter than a washing machine. That does not apply to specifically enumerated sounds in the code, things like construction, special events, and so on. In residential and in public space, between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., the maximum receiving sound level is 55 decibels. So it's a 10 decibel decrease. It's about the sound of normal rainfall. And you can see where it falls on this chart. I found this online. Both 65 and 55 are well below the danger thresholds. Looking into research, which is spoken to in the staff report, 55 is typically the level where, as background noise, sound can start to be irritating. Between May 10th and July 24th, the Sheriff's Office received 18 complaint calls about noise at the property. In 2 of those instances, the owner chose to turn down the music. However, none of the complaints resulted in the issuance of a citation. Code enforcement in the Sheriff's Office completed 6 sound readings for the property between May 27th and July 1st. Our code enforcement department does have specific equipment that is able to take sound readings and separate them from the ambient reading. The first reading on May 27th was significantly higher than what the city's code allows, regardless of whether a conditional use permit's been issued or not. There was a reading of 81.2 decibels around 6 p.m. on May 27th, taken from the bridge just north of the restaurant. At the time, the owner did choose to turn down the music, and the new reading was 65.2 decibels. 3 of those 6 readings resulted in no violation of the decibel limits. There was a final reading taken around 8 p.m. on July 1st, which resulted in a 66 decibel reading. Regarding the loud and raucous noise standard, the city has a little bit less of a direct standard. Loud and raucous is essentially defined in the code as any sound that is persistently irritating or disturbing to a reasonable person of normal sensibilities. There are no specific standards for loud and raucous noise in the city's code when it comes to amplified music or electric bass or drums, other than that the noise itself cannot be loud and raucous. However, that may be defined in the one particular situation. There are some noises in the city's code that are enumerated as being loud and raucous, just to give some context for this standard. Things like cars backfiring, throwing bottles into dumpsters late at night, any kind of screaming or drumming in a non-emergency context that's used to attract attention. Those are actually enumerated in the city's code as being loud and raucous. However, in situations like the subject request, the city instead employs the reasonable person standard that was mentioned in the previous slide. So for staff considerations for this report, in lieu of any persistent significant violations of the city's decibel code, as mentioned before, there was the one reading north of 80 that was significantly higher. However, the other 2 readings were within 1 decibel of the maximum permitted in the city's code. Staff still need to consider whether the parameters set by the applicant could result in loud and raucous noise, whether due to some character of the noise itself or due to the duration that was requested. The city's comprehensive plan calls for balancing between commercial improvement and minimizing threats caused by land use incompatibilities, which includes protecting residential character. So here are some photos of the site showing the signs that were posted. This is showing the parking area. This relates to a condition that's being recommended in a few slides. Here are some photos of the site. These were taken at different visits. The top left and the bottom were taken recently after the recent hurricane, but that is the same tented area where the musicians are proposed to play. And here are some photos of the site looking from the new deck to the north and to the south, showing the 21st Avenue Bridge and showing the Wharf Restaurant to the south. For the first part, here are the 7 conditions and 4 sub-items in the city's code that pertain to all conditional use permits. This is not in the city's community redevelopment district, so there are additional standards that do not apply to this specific use. These are responded to in the staff report, but I wanted to point out that staff had particular concerns regarding item 2D pertaining to livability of nearby land use due to noise and late night operations, and item 5 pertaining to preservation of public welfare. Again, these are responded to in your staff report. And here are 3 additional items. These are more administrative checklists dealing with additional items that need to be provided to staff under these requests. For the first part of the request regarding the outdoor dining deck extension, staff finds there would not be an adverse impact on the public interest, and the request is compatible with adjacent properties and others in the zoning district. The size of the deck and its visual impact on the public waterfront is not substantial, considering its neighboring structures to the north and the south, the north patio, which is included as part of this property. For the second part of the request, staff finds that there would be an adverse impact on the public interest if the use were approved as originally proposed due to concerns about duration and intensity or character of noise. Referring back to the reasonable person standard, staff received several individually written letters written by residents in the vicinity that noted decibels and duration as significant concerns and impact on quality of life. This item is a quasi-judicial determination, not a referendum, but there were a significant number of concerns that stated quality of life was degraded due to irritating and persistent noise. Because of this, staff recommends modification to the original request. We are recommending approval for both requests as shown in Resolution 2023-08. There were 12 conditions that we're recommending for approval. The dining deck had 2 of those conditions. The first is that the tableware being used in the dining area shall be reusable. The second relates to the parking lot modifications. There were recent parking lot changes that were made, parking space changes specifically, due to the installation of a new freestanding monument sign. Also, the ADA accessibility standards do not seem to be met with the spaces that are currently present. We are recommending modifications to the front parking lot in front of the restaurant facing Pass-a-Girl Way to make sure that those issues are resolved. We have spoken with the applicant about this at Technical Review Committee, and they have been amenable to doing this. For requests 3 through 10, they relate to outdoor music. Condition number 3 would limit outdoor music to acoustic only except during specified hours. That's contained in condition number 8. Condition number 4 would prohibit amplification of that acoustic music except during the specified conditions, again, in condition number 8. And condition 5 would prohibit the piping of any music that was played indoors, outdoors through speakers, except through specific hours as enumerated in condition 8. The hours permitted for acoustic music are in line with the original application submitted by the applicant. That's number 6. They did amend the hours for the resubmittal, but we are recommending the original hours that were submitted under condition number 6. Moving on to condition number 7, at all hours and regardless of the sound source, condition number 7 would limit the receiving level of noise to 55 decibels at any residential property. This is covered in the staff report, but that 70 decibel standard was chosen due to a calculation called the rule of squares, which would approximately provide a 55 decibel receiving level at the nearest residence if measured at 70 decibels from the nearest speaker on the subject property. Condition 8 would permit the applicant to play amplified music subject to the prior decibel standards between 12 and 3 each Saturday and Sunday, which is in line with what the former operator hosted for outdoor music without any complaints. And that was in late 2020 when that began. The equipment installed to support the amplified music would need to be permanent, and there would need to be a governor installed to consistently limit the sound levels. In some cases, this is electronic equipment, and sometimes it's something that actually attaches up to the amplification system, but there would need to be a governor, a modulator, something like that, that limits the sound level to the levels limited in condition 7. Condition 9, all outdoor music areas and bands shall be limited to the tented areas shown on the site plan. To my understanding, that is where they propose to play. And condition 10 just refers to under a tropical storm or hurricane warning, the tent needs to be brought inside if one of those is declared. The final 2 conditions are recommended for any conditional use permit. Any violation of the above stated conditions will allow the City Commission to rescind or modify the conditional use permit. And the City Commission may review the conditional use permit periodically to determine whether the order is in compliance with the terms and conditions stated in the resolution. Staff recommend a motion to approve Resolution 2023-08 with the aforementioned conditions. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Brandon?
I think I had a couple.
Commissioner Grill?
Condition 12 is BAU condition, is it not?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Condition 12 is BAU, any CUP the City Commission can look at and reevaluate at any time.
Correct.
So I think we really have 11 unique ones and 1 generic one.
And I believe we typically recommend condition number 11 as well for all of the conditional use permits. So those are
The last 2 are generic.
Okay, so it's 10 unique and 2 we want to get on the record, but they're applicable to any CUP.
Correct.
Usually that gets approved. Okay. Can you provide a little background on the dock? It's not clear how we got a permit issued for a dock and then it wasn't correct. And
this was a period where we didn't have any staff planners. So Brandon wasn't here, Wes had just left. We were using somebody who used to work here to review the zoning component of this, and she just missed the fact that you needed to have come for a CUP analysis. When we discovered that, then the permit was revoked because the building code provides for that when something has been issued in error, there's an ability to revoke a permit. So that's what happened there.
And we've put the appropriate process changes. I mean, mistakes will happen.
Right.
But have we implemented the appropriate process changes to some quality control so that we don't repeat the problem? I don't want to make it
So now
individual.
all those zoning reviews go through our planners, right? They go through our planners, which they know the code well, and as long as we maintain planning staff, yeah. So it's all about maintaining the right people. Yes.
Right, and having the right process
Right. Right.
Mistakes will happen. Okay. Okay, those were the 2 questions right now. Thank you.
On
Thank you.
Section 8, Couple of items. Equipment shall produce no bass.
Yes.
I think you need to specify a hertz level there, maybe 120 or above. That's generally what bass is, and so if we don't say it, then I don't think it's precise enough. And then we need some kind of vehicle by which to measure that. Any of those things in Section 8.
Right. To my understanding, our equipment cannot measure, I believe it's dBB, if that's the correct term for it, but that makes sense to have standards in there for hertz. We'll have to figure out how
something
we'll
right.
measure that.
Yeah. Pete knows what we have and how it works, but
Commissioner Groh?
So, and these conditions on volume, decibel levels, et cetera, are consistent with what has been done for other applicants that have come in and requested CUPs for outdoor music. Is that correct?
Many of them are similar. We actually, our prior conditional use permit wasn't directly for the rooftop music at Hotel Zamora, but many of the conditions were very similar, setting decibel levels, hours of play, even on the property. In that case, there were specific limitations on which side of the roof, or what the decibel rating could be on various sides of the roof. The governor standard was also in place there as well, so they're very similar.
The condition on the acoustic music is more stringent than the Zamora condition because of the proximity to the single-family homes across the water.
Sure.
So this is a little bit more stringent.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one thing, Mr. Mayor, unless you... From a staff perspective, would the staff be agreeable to a suggestion that I'm going to make in subsection 8, where it says equipment shall produce no bass, instruments shall be limited to string instruments unless otherwise approved by the city manager, that it should really have a period after instruments, because any request for approval come before this commission on a conditional use permit. So it probably shouldn't be referenced as approval by city manager. Is that fair to say?
That's understandable. You know, I didn't go through the whole list of potential.
And I'm fine with that,
issues,
but if I propose that change, is that something that staff would say, you would say, yeah, that's probably...
I don't see any objection to that. Right?
Thank you.
Can you provide a little bit more background information on, so there seems to have been many reports of loud music at this property. I just would like clarification on two things. One is, just the quote here says, the proprietor chose to or chose not to reduce the music. So, and then the second part is, clearly the sheriff was called out there many times, and we've spoken with the sheriff, and I understand his reluctance to issue citations on the first offense, but it seems like we've had many instances here. Can you shed any more information on why the citations were not issues in all of those cases?
I don't believe that's really within.
Well, I'm just wondering if that came up during the TRC, because that's usually part of the conversation, or if
Right.
you have additional information.
Yeah, so the decision to issue a violation or not rests with the officer that goes to the site. And their general philosophy is that when they come, people lower the music, no, they will, they will just walk away and don't address it. Because these are not being recorded, I think what happens is that if today you get me and tomorrow you get him and the following day you get him, they're not recording this as an incident. So different people will give them different breaks over time. So I think that's part of what happened with the police officers responding to these situations.
I mean, we haven't had that one incident here where, it was over 80 decibels, which is quite loud, and then they agreed to lower it, but still above the threshold.
I think they lowered to 60.
65.2, which is still above the threshold of 65. Yeah.
I wish I had that information for you, but I don't.
Great. Thank you.
The applicant is here and could probably address that question.
Sure.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Please state your name and for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor. My name is Kyle Bass with Weber Crab and Ween, here on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Collum and Red, White, and Booze, the restaurant and entertainment establishment that we're talking about that takes, it's located at 2007 Paso Grill Way. So I just want to point out, and I'll get to the conditions in a minute. There's
If you
no
can please step a little closer to the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good. I just want to point out before I get started that there's no part of myself or my clients that think that we're going to walk away here today with everything that we're asking for without any conditions. So we did come here. We are agreeable to some of the conditions. Some of the conditions I do want to speak more about. Mr. Commissioner, I think you pointed out something about Mr. Mayor, you pointed out the Hertz level, I believe, and some clarity issues, Mr. Commissioner, that we want to talk more about. But I also would like to point out that Mr. and Mrs. Collum are residents of this area, especially Mr. Collum has been here since 1999. He's a resident here. He likes the area. He loves the area. He wants to see it continue to grow, continue to increase the tourism and grow in its popularity, but also maintain, obviously, that it's a wonderful niche area, quite frankly, that I don't think you see in other parts of the county. The city touched on it previously. The property was known by the name of Sea Critters, I believe.
Yeah, Critters.
Sea Critters Cafe. They played music there as well. I'm unclear as to whether there was a conditional use permit while they were playing there. I'm also unclear of whether the code required it. But the point that I bring up, and the reason that I bring up that there was music being played there, there's also music being played at the wharf. There's music being played at the yacht club there adjacent, the Hotel Zamora that was brought up by the city. These outdoor bars, I think, foster the outdoor environment, the beach feel, if you will, that Paso Grill has. And that's the purpose, that's the ultimate goal of the conditional use permits that are before us today. So my clients purchased the property in first quarter 2022, and since then they've been making a lot of improvements, a lot of updates, one being that the deck that we're speaking about. The deck is an interesting thing. They sought what they thought was the proper and correct methods from the city. They thought that they were doing the right thing. They spoke with the city. They got what they thought was the necessary approval. Based on that approval granted by the city, which was ultimately mistaken, however, based on that approval, they acted. They put in the dock. I forget how expensive it was, but it was several thousand dollars to put that deck in. The deck was installed pursuant to the plans, is my understanding, and it did pass final inspection. So the city is correct. As we sit here today, the deck is there. And then while we're on the deck, the two conditions proposed by the city, my clients are not in disagreement with. Okay, the two of them, one of them being the reusable utensils. They're doing that now. We have no objection to that, to continue to do that. And then the parking lot needs to be readdressed per the city. My clients are agreeable to that as well. Moving on then to I think the main reason as to why we're here. Well, let me back up too. On the deck issue, that came to light as we were trying to move forward with the music issue. It was the city's attorney recommendation to amend the conditional use permit. My clients were more than happy to, more than agreeable to jump through the hoops that were needed to get the previous hearing. If you guys remember, I think this has been set a few times now, 3 times maybe. But we were more than agreeable to ask for a continuance or seek a continuance, submit an amended complaint, which, as you all well know, requires it to be re-noticed, re-signed posting, which costs my clients money, but we wanted to be sure to try to do this the correct way and the easiest way. So, getting to the music. I'm going to start with my clients are generally agreeable to conditions on the music. We've had long discussions about what those are, about what those look like or could look like. And just kind of jumping into it, I think the ultimate goal here is, like I mentioned earlier, my clients are also residents, right? Not myself, myself excluded, but everybody here is a resident of this city, of this municipality. I think the ultimate goal is community. With that in mind, I want to get to some of the conditions. So the first condition regarding this, specifically regarding the music, well, I want to jump down to number 6 because that's got the hours. And then we'll come back up to the exceptions. So the city's correct. Upon the amendment to the conditional use permit, my clients, and after discussion with my office, chose to ask for 7 days a week from, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Okay. My clients are agreeable to obviously coming off of that number. In fact, we, after speaking again, we are agreeable with what's proposed for the days and times by the city's proposed conditions, with one minor exception, which I think is everybody will be in agreement with. From Wednesday to Friday, my client, what's proposed is 5 to 10 p.m. My clients are agreeable to not play music on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday through Friday, they are agreeable, if the condition were to be set, to play it from 5 to 9. So ending it an hour shorter than what the city has proposed in their conditional and their proposed conditions. And the reason being, and that's important, I think, yes, it's just an hour, but the reason that's important because it shows where my clients are at, where their headspace is. They understand that this is not their community, as far as this isn't just them. This is a community that that everybody in this room is living in. And so in order to facilitate that good nature, they're willing to cut back from Wednesday to Friday, not seek any music Monday and Tuesday, and cut back Wednesday and Friday from even what the city proposed, and only played 5 to 9. And then as far as Saturday and Sunday are concerned, what the city has proposed, my clients are agreeable to that condition. And then moving right along to the decibel rating. This one's easy. My clients are agreeable. There have been some concerns, several complaints. I don't want to belittle that or look over it, but there have been several complaints regarding the volume level of the music coming from my client's property. I do think the evidence shows that when the law enforcement was called or the code enforcer was called, that there was compliance, or at least effort to comply, and I do think that there is some good faith showing there going forward that they are willing to comply with the 70 decibel rating and the 55 decibel rating as it's set in the proposed conditions. And this is kind of where we deviate a little bit from the proposed conditions. I think this is where a vast majority of the discussion is going to come up, and it's no surprise, it's number 8. The big issue that we have, or my clients have, with the conditions as they're proposed is the word amplified music. As we all well know, probably, that most music, if not all music today, is in some way, shape, or form amplified. I think there needs to be, I think that needs to be revisited. So, for example, the use of a microphone would be amplified. Acoustic guitars, yes, there are acoustic guitars that are true acoustic guitars and are not amplified. However, I think if we admit that if any of us have been to a concert, I think, if we're being honest, the majority of the acoustic guitars, anyway, that are being performed with, have some sort of an amplification system either in them and are there or connected to one. That's severely, those two conditions, that it's unamplified and it's string instruments only, severely limits the type of music that my client can play. Just jumping right to drums, because I think that's a glaringly obvious one, talking about bass. I don't want this to be mistaken. My clients are not trying to set up a drum set and a full band like you would see in a concert. But for example, some of the musicians that play, and I believe we're going to hear from at least one tonight. I don't know if this is him, but they play the bongos. My understanding of what a drum is, it's a percussion instrument. I think a bongo would classify as a drum. But I also think that that type of instrument really facilitates and blends well with the atmosphere of Paso Gro. Another one would be a steel drum. Those two instruments, just right off the top, would be gone based on these conditions. My proposal or my change would be to, we've agreed to number 6 as far as the hours, minus the 1 hour. We've agreed to the decibel rating. Now that we have a decibel rating that my clients are willing to comply with, okay, we don't need the extra limitation, right? The goal of these limitations is to prevent and limit loud and raucous noise. The city has proposed a decibel rating that they believe will do that, and what they said in their presentation is 55 is right there at the cusp of being that, if it, depending on the tone, is right there on the annoyance level. But if we're in compliance with the decibel rating as it's set forth, which I'm stating to you that my client is in agreement with, then what does it matter what the source of the music is from? Because whether it's singing, whether it's a true acoustic guitar or a drum set, the decibel rating must be the same, 70 and 55. So ideally what we would like to see, we've shown, I think, our good faith. We've agreed to part of the conditions, all of the conditions as they're related to the deck. We would like to see the change to allow amplified music, but still be captured and be limited by that decibel rating of 70 and 55. And then just to kind of finish up, the other issue is installing the permanent equipment. I do have concerns on how that would work, particularly along with number 10. The tent has to be temporary, but they want us to install permanent speakers. So there's some concerns on how that would work that may need to be fleshed out more. My clients are the ones that are hiring the musicians. They're the ones that stand responsible for any loud music. As they have it set, they do have a rotation of musicians that play, regular musicians that play, that bring their own equipment and have expressed that they would prefer to use their own equipment because it is tuned for their instruments, and they are familiar with how it works, and the quality of sound, according to them, is much better. My clients did propose something else. I don't believe they're able to do it based on the code, but they have said if they are permitted to put a roof, if one of the conditions would be that we're proposing is if they were permitted to put a roof over that deck that we saw on the overhead, then at certain hours they would be able to drop screens, which would further buffer the noise for some of the concerned residents across the waterway. I do believe the code may limit that ability to building a deck over the water, but that would be a $40,000 to $50,000 investment on behalf of my clients. Again, the point of this is that they're willing to take additional measures to safeguard the community, to safeguard the safety and the standards of what this community is. So I stand ready to answer any questions that the panel may have.
Commissioners?
So just so I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
It is your understanding in subsection 8 that the city's recommendation from staff is approving amplified music.
Correct, Your Honor. My understanding is that it's between the hours of 12 p.m. and 3 p.m.
So because at first I heard you say that that's the problem, is amplified music. Is it really your position that the scope of the amplified music should be increased in subsection 8? It shouldn't just be for those 2 days. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Your Honor. My proposal is, or what my reasoning is that if my clients are permitted to play regardless of what the instrument is, or who the musician is. If they're only allowed to be 70 decibels and 55 decibels at the resident's edge, then it doesn't matter what instrument is making that music or that sound. It's still limited to the same number. So whether it's amplified, whether it's a radio, whether it be some sort of a speaker, I think the point is, and I think the city is there with their decibel rating, that they want to prevent loud and raucous noises. The decibel rating does that. If I had 4 amplifiers and a speaker hooked up together, I still can't be any louder than 70 decibels and 55 decibels. So the amount or the type of equipment that's producing that sound still would have to comply with the 70 decibels that we're agreeable to. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, when you said that the issue was amplified music, this proposal allows for amplified music. So you're just saying you want amplified music all the time. You don't want it restricted to just acoustic music during certain periods of time.
Correct. I think the limitation to just stringed instruments on unamplified does pose additional issues that we haven't considered yet. But yes, that's true.
What are the hours of the restaurant, of the business establishment?
That's great, sir. Question, Mr. Vice President or Vice Mayor. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, Your Honor. Or Vice Mayor.
Well, the applicant's here. Can they tell us
Yes.
what the?
Hold on. They have. I don't. Have you been sworn in? I don't believe he's been sworn in yet. Okay. 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is that every day? Every day.
Okay, so proposals to stop the music 1 hour before the establishment closes. On Monday,
Correct.
Wednesday to Friday. Yeah,
Correct. Yes.
except Saturday and Sunday we go to closing time.
Correct. Which would be in
Okay,
just as the city proposed. Yes.
got it. That's
So in section 6, your proposal is to remove Monday and Tuesday and end early Wednesday through Friday. That section is not prescriptive. It doesn't say your client has to play music those hours. Those are just the hours that he's allowed to. If he doesn't want to play music on Monday, Tuesday, great for them. If they want to quit early on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's perfect as well. I think what the staff has proposed in section 8 is quite generous based on the track record, with multiple calls to code enforcement, to the sheriff's office, with less than half of them indicated that, the applicant even turned down the music. When I was in college, I was a junior, and I was a camp counselor, and they assigned us as a camp counselor this big orange bus we called Big Bertha. And Big Bertha was limited to 65 miles an hour because they knew we were teenagers, and no matter how much we promised we weren't going to be speeding down, I-75, we were going to do it anyway. And you couldn't reach 65 miles an hour standing with both feet going downhill with the wind at your back. And I think that's what you have here, right? The applicant hasn't shown in good faith that they're willing to abide by the 65 decibels. And so now we have to put in rules in place to make sure that they cannot exceed that, because they haven't documented in the past that they're willing and able to do so, even after 20, 30 calls. That's why that's there.
Understood, Your Honor. Or, Mr. Mayor. That's all the questions I have. I can.
Do you want to reserve some time for after so you'll hear from the public, and then council can have some extra time
Absolutely.
for rebuttal to close your case if you like?
Thank you.
I think, I'm interested to hear from the public, but I think whatever we do, we have as with any CUP, if we choose to approve it, we have review rights, and I would want to build in, we'll see where we decide, but we build in some sort of review to make sure that it's going as agreed, and then take action if it doesn't, as we would with any CUP. But let's hear from the public.
Public comments, City Clerk?
Okay, so I have Kenneth Heisel, and he has asked for 10 minutes. He is speaking on behalf of other residents. He has brought other residents who are here following the rules that we've established to allow him to have the 10 minutes. He has prepared a PowerPoint presentation as part of his public comment on this item.
Okay, will at least 4 additional people giving up their time identify themselves by raising your hand?
Raise your hands, anyone I'm going to speak on behalf of you.
Just to make sure that you're clear, if you're raising your hand now, you're giving up your right to speak at any point in the future, tonight. You can come back in 2 weeks and speak again, but not tonight, and not on this issue.
Can I see those hands one more time? Whoever's giving up.
Okay. So if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would object to this, just for the record.
This is standard procedure for... We gave you all the time. All right.
Okay.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kenneth Heisel. I'm from 2032 West Vina Del Mar Boulevard, St. Pete Beach. So we're here today for two things that everybody here has in common, even if they don't want to admit it right now. We all love St. Pete Beach, and we wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't. We all support live music, or we wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't. However, the only problem we have is we don't support live amplified music. That is why we're here tonight, and that's the sole reason. So tonight I want to talk about the respect and tolerance in the Sunset capital of Florida, and what it does mean to be a good neighbor. So how did we get here? Over the last year and a half, Vina Del Mar and Paso Robles residents have had to tolerate Red, White, and Booze playing loud and live amplified music 5 days a week. Says that he stops at 9 o'clock, it goes to 9:30, sometimes 10 o'clock. It never stops when it's supposed to. Well, by April 2023, our respect and tolerance had been exhausted. So we, 43 neighbors, went to the city for help. We asked you all for help. And why did we do that? The 43 neighbors who live adjacent to the property. We're not talking about North Vina Del Mar or South Vina Del Mar or North Paso Robles or South Paso Robles. These are 43 adjacent neighbors, and all we asked of that applicant right here is, would you lower your music? And he basically told us to pound sand and good luck. So that's why we're here. We wanted him to lower the volume, and that's where we started with. That was the best part. So it's a little history lesson right now for the other side. In 2010 to 2019, there was no live music at Sea Critters. They were a good neighbor. November 2020, live music started at Sea Critters 2 days a week, Saturday and Sunday, 3 hours a day, 6 hours total. At that time, there was no conditional use permit required. They had one musician with an amplifier. You can see it in the bottom right of the corner right there. During the COVID pandemic, everybody wanted somebody to do a little something. March of 2021, live music increased to 3 days, still just a total of 9 hours. They had a conditional use permit requirement, but they never got it. So they were playing now unpermitted, I guess. But it's the same thing, one musician talking or singing on one little small amplifier. 2022, Mr. Collin bought the restaurant in April 2022. The music got louder, the music got longer. Vina and Paso Robles residents told the owner and the staff that they loved what he did to the building. It really was an eyesore. He put money into it. We loved the music, but could he just lower it down a little bit? His response was increasing it from 3 days to 4 days to 5 days. So that's the reality that we're at right now. We have 5 days a week, 35 to 45 hours, depending upon when the musician wants to stop. And he was requesting 77, so I'll forego that. But in 2023, after trying to work with RWB and the owner, city right here, RWB retaliated against Vina Del Mar and Paso Robles residents by verbally threatening them, attempting physical intimidation, and making obscene gestures. This was noted after the May 2nd meeting when Chris Marone organized a meeting with the city and RWB staff. Not only was I physically insulted after the meeting, but even that evening when my wife and I were swimming in the pool, both those people in the front row made obscene gestures to my family. So there's a pattern of non-compliance. April of 2023, the city told the owner he could not play live amplified music without a cup. Owner played live amplified music anyway. April 2023, the city told the owner he was not grandfathered in to play live amplified music. Owner played live amplified music anyway. May 2023, the city staff and Vina Del Mar and Pasco residents met with the owner. This is the infamous meeting. Well, at the end of the meeting, he got so upset, he said, I have better things to do, and he told us if we don't like it, we might as well move. Well, it doesn't really sound realistic for 43 residents who purchased their properties between 1978 and 2021, who paid a total of $47.2 million for their properties and pay a taxable property value of $48.7. That's 5 times more than RWB pays in what he paid for his 13 properties on St. Pete Beach, and the one in Pinellas Park, he paid $16.5 million between 1999 and 2022. He only pays 5 times less in property taxes than we do. So I think we have a voting block here that supports us. Owner received a notice of violation for playing live music too loud in July of 2023. The owner agreed to move the live music inside. July 2023, the owner piped live amplified music from inside to the outside. It was so loud, and the musician is here in the audience right now, Farley Compton. It was so loud we thought it was real. So residents, we went out there. I went up on the Vina Del Bridge. I observed the musician running inside and outside. He was back inside, but then the owner came out. So I took a video of the owner. I took a picture of the video of the musician and then of the owner, and he walks down the deck, flipping me off and making obscene, profane, laced tirade at me. That was witnessed by his manager who's standing up against the wall and another bartender. August 2023, the city told the owner at Technical Review Committee not to play live amplified music inside and pipe it to the outside. Owner told the city he would stop. However, later in August, the city told the owner again that he could not play live amplified music inside and pipe it outside. The owner took a week or more just to comply with that. So it's just a pattern of compliance, non-compliance. So total and complete escalation of non-compliance shows complete contempt for not only the neighbors, but the city as well, for Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies, for code enforcement, and it culminated on May 27, 2023. John Kyle Rohde, #1 of the top 3 violators of sound violators, he advertises on social media, I'm at Red Wine Booze tonight, singing and banging on my guitar, y'all come hoot and holler. Well, what they didn't know is St. Pete Code Enforcement Supervisor Pete Dewar is out there. He took an 81 decibel meter reading 70 feet away from the sound source. So you have a sound person right here, Brandon Berry, who can do a reverse engineering on that formula, and it'll show you that that makes the sound source over 90 dBAs, and the owner voluntarily turned it down. He did that. That's what he did. When St. Pete Beach Code Enforcement in Pinellas County left, Vina Del Mar residents observed the owner walk out on the end of his dock and make obscene gestures again to Vina Del Mar. And it was just, it blew our mind. But that same night, Pinellas County came back, took another decibel reading from a Vina Del Mar residence located 492 feet away. If you do the reverse engineer, 492 feet away, it was registered at 60 dBAs. So if you do that inverse square law, or the formula that Brandon was talking about, that makes the sound source over 90 dBAs again. Remember, that's later in the evening, but they had already been approached once that evening. So that means that either the owner or the musician turned it back up. Both incidents were documented. The owner has over 18 noise complaints between that time. And why? This is where it really hits home. None of the sound equipment is compliant. There's no standard operating procedure for live music. The speakers, the amplifiers, the placement of the speakers or amplifiers, the volume, direction, duration, noise abatement elements. This is reality right now. That's the new dock up in the top left. He has speakers all inside that new dock. He has speakers up on his rooftop of the overhang. They face outside. They face Vina. They face Paso Grillo. They face Paso Grillo up the channel. If you look at the right side, that's a dock, extends 25 feet or more out from the RWB, parallel to the Vina Del Mar Bridge. He's got speakers facing the water that just echo right out. They just blow right up the canal. So it's just, the solution is acoustical sound engineer needs to come in and help him help us be good neighbors as well as him. So that's what we're asking for right now. This one you already know. I'll get to the end because I'm at a minute. So how can the city help us? Vina and Paso Grillo residents have suffered for 1.5 years with RWB not being a good neighbor, and we approve all of the city recommendations in CUP 23034 staff report. We hope you approve it as well, because why? One, the staff addressed the 70 decibel level. Sorry, I'm working it. Staff addressed the 70 decibel limit from all outdoor speakers. So it's not just from the sound source, it's all outdoor speakers. That means the one that was in the previous slide, it's up on that building, it's 40 feet away from the first property, not 70 or 110, it's 70. And they recommended no live music after 10 p.m. Well, that means 10 p.m. in the cup. It's not 10:15, it's not 10:30, it's not 11. Those musicians play on and on and on, where we're just waiting for it to end, and it doesn't seem to end. Staff address requiring the approval of equipment placement so it's positioned away from the water and away from Vina Del Mar and Paso Robles residents, previously stated. Number 3, staff addressed valid concerns for the potential and prolonged raucous noise resulting in nuisances and incompatibilities with surrounding land uses that would deprive us, our residents, the right to peacefully and quietly enjoy their properties. Staff addressed unamplified acoustic string instruments in outdoor areas excluding 12 to 3. Each Saturday and Sunday, no percussion or bass instruments allowed. It's a win-win for us. It's a win-win from them. They get to play. Everything's great. If you just go, last thing I want to say, sorry, is address amplified music, live music through approved and permanently installed equipment. That's the lockbox. That's the holy grail in this. Because somebody who hasn't been compliant this whole year and a half could become compliant with a lockbox, where you just say you lock it up, Pete Dewar gets a key, and so does Pinellas County Sheriff's.
Thank you, sir.
So staff address these. You can rescind or modify
Thank you,
the
sir.
cap at any time. Thank you.
We may have a question or two for you, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So, from the last thing you said you or the people you speak on behalf are okay with all the conditions, including number 8?
Yes,
So, amplified music Saturday and Sundays from noon to 3 o'clock?
12 to 3. 12 to 3, no mas. And I think that's a pretty amenable solution. We're working at both sides, too. We're willing to give some. He's willing to give some. But it's got to be both ways, and right now it's been a one-way street.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Next comment, please.
Bob Miklich.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Miklich. I live at 1705 Pastor Grill Way. I've lived there since 1979. I'm also a former police officer for the city of St. Pete Beach, and several of you I know. I did a...
As friends, no arrests.
I know him from being here prior.
Just the way you say it.
Yeah, just want to clarify that.
During my career with the police department, one of the things that I did was sound. I went to school for the state EPA and was licensed by them to do sound pressure. I was also done by the FHP to do motor vehicle noise. I can't add a whole lot to what Ken has said, but if you look at this overlay,
Ryan, can you pull up?
that, if you look at, it's on the water. That's a nice flat surface. Sound waves work basically the same as a maritime wave. You have a cup there, or that corner, that's a collector. And that is right in the primary area where most of the sound complaints come from. It's collecting it right there. That is just a point that I want to bring up. The second thing I want to bring up is they keep referencing 70 dBA. 70 dBA is the threshold number for hearing damage. If you listen to 70 dBA for a long enough period of time, you will start to suffer hearing loss. If anything, drop it by 5. That's going to put you in a range where you're safe, everybody else is safe. If you continue on a 70 course, you're going to suffer a hearing loss. I'm sure there's different places that will say, no, 70 is fine, it's 75 that you need. They just be able to do it from experience and everything that I was ever trained in and taught, lose the 70. drop it to 65 dBA. That's a normal conversational tone. That won't hurt anybody. For however long, however many hours you run it, it's not going to hurt your hearing or your ability to hear. That's all. There's nothing else that I can really add.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next comment, please.
Nancy Shannon.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Nancy Shannon, and I live at 2141 East Vina Del Mar Boulevard. And since Paso Grill is a historical area, and since I have lived here since 1962, I thought that perhaps I could present a brief perspective of what this little beach city was like. First time we drove south of the Don Cesar, we were in awe. There were beautiful, big 40-foot pine trees that lined all of Paso Grill Way. They met in the middle, gave shade and a lovely whirring sound, so even in the middle of an August hot day, you were cool. Coming down the street, the building that is now Stop and Go was the office of Dr. Kirkpatrick. It was a beautiful aqua blue color, the color of the Gulf on some days. The next building, where Leaping Llama is now, and where Gennaro's was for a long time, was a drugstore, a quiet drugstore. Frank Madalena was a pharmacist, and he had his assistant bring the medicine to people who were sick or who had transportation trouble. Shainer's was a general store, quiet, peaceful, with a lovely soda fountain where many residents would go and enjoy the best hamburgers ever. Across the street, where Red, White, and Booze is now, was another small store where you could buy fishing gear and boating supplies with a small marina behind the building. Around 1964, a family named Belair bought it and made their home in the building, as they and their 3 children ran the then-named Five Bells Marina. One of their daughters became one of our favorite babysitters. We had a school then, aptly named Sunshine School, and a portly, smiling policeman would cross the children. They could go to kindergarten even by themselves. We had a post office on 8th Avenue that served as a meeting place for neighbors and which met all our mailing needs. Later, yes, the Pinellas County School Board closed the school and the federal government took the post office away. But what remained? What really remained was the friendliness of neighbors who helped each other, who stood by each other. What I am asking, why can't a restaurant be a good neighbor? Does it really need loud music after 9 o'clock when children are studying for school and people are getting ready to go work in the morning? Does it really need carnival-like lights around the patio all night to shine in people's bedrooms? Can it be a good neighbor? Peace, tranquility, God's beauty, good neighbors. What more can we wish for? Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
John Gill.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Gill, 301 Julia Circle South, Vina Del Mar. With regard to request number 2, first, thank you for this opportunity to share our concerns. We are adamantly opposed to the substance of this resolution that would inevitably result in increased and excessive noise levels. Insofar as we ourselves do refrain from the imposition of our musical taste and preferences upon our friends and neighbors, we in turn reasonably expect a corresponding measure of reciprocity. Furthermore, the previous restaurant owner successfully conducted his business absent of the production of sound and fury. We anticipate the present owner is capable of doing likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next comment, please.
Tyler Bates.
Please state your name and address for the record.
The address that I live at or that I work at?
Either.
My name is Tyler Bates. I work at 2007 Pacific Way. Today I want to shed light on a topic that holds immense significance for our restaurant: the financial hardship of not having live music. Music has been the soul of our establishment for the last 4 years. However, due to recent circumstances, we find ourselves in a challenging predicament: the absence of live music. Live music has been the heartbeat of our restaurant, creating an ambiance that complements the beautiful waterside setting. It's not just entertainment, it's an integral part of the experience we offer. Well, let's delve into the financial ramifications of its absence. Firstly, live music attracts more patrons. The music drifting through the air draws diners in, significantly increasing foot traffic. This translates to more tables filled, more orders placed, and ultimately a boost in revenue. Without live music, we risk losing this essential magnet for customers. Secondly, it prolongs the dining experience. Live music encourages patrons to linger, order dessert, or savor another drink. Extended dining times equate to increased sales and higher check averages, all contributing to our bottom line. Thirdly, live music is a marketing tool. It creates a unique selling point for our restaurant, setting us apart from competitors. Word-of-mouth recommendations and positive reviews generated by the live music experience can't be underestimated in today's competitive dining landscape. Furthermore, live music, when promoted effectively, can become revenue streams of their own. In the absence of live music, we not only face a decline in revenue, but also risk losing our loyal customer base who have come to expect this distinctive element of our dining experience. This hardship extends not just to our restaurant, but also the talented musicians who rely on these gigs for their livelihood. In conclusion, the financial hardship of not having live music at our restaurant on the water is undeniable. It impacts our revenue, customer retention, and overall identity as a unique establishment. As we navigate these challenging times, it's crucial that we find creative ways to bring the music back, not only for our financial well-being, but also for the experience it brings to our cherished patrons.
Next comment, please.
James Compton.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, James Compton. I live in Gulfport, Florida. And I guess I'm the bad guy. I'm one of the musicians that plays there. Like you to know that I perform at St. Pete Yacht Club, Isla Yacht Club, Bel Air Country Club, in Largo at the golf club resort that they have up there. I perform about 210 shows a year on the beach areas in downtown St. Pete. Just a week ago, Saturday, I played outdoors with the exact same equipment, same song selection, basically, at the Pass Grill St. Pete Yacht Club location. Done that numerous times over the last few years. I know the residents are concerned, but I have to believe that 55 dB at their property line, that's what that is? Are you kidding me? I don't know, that seems absurd to me. I've got a couple points here I'll quickly go through here. Questions I have. Okay, what equipment have you ever seen advertise any speakers that no bass? And who would want to sit and listen to music with no bass of any kind? That's kind of a strange thing. Also, from his presentation a little while ago, the gentleman was showing all the speakers around the venue. I don't know of any venue that I've ever been to as a diner or a music performer that doesn't have lots of little speakers all around their outdoor section of their venue. I don't know. Just about every place I'm aware of in this area have speakers that they play program music. Also, the idea that you could just have somebody walk around with the acoustic guitar and sing and play with no amplification of any kind. In most restaurants, the noise level from the customers more than 10 feet away, it would be pointless to even have a musician doing that. So I'm not sure what the point of I don't know, can you imagine, any of you, going to hear somebody perform, just sitting there and playing it? Unless it's a tiny little coffee shop or something, that would be an odd thing. Also, what other venues in St. Pete Beach are you requiring this stringent controls? I'd like to know about that. And there are a lot of people that do support live music and do support live music at this venue, and I guarantee you that the people that are angry about it are the ones that call the most. The people that are happy about it, they're not calling you and saying, oh, how great it is over there. It's the people that are mad about something. And how many of the 30 or 40 calls and emails you're talking about, how many came from the same people over and over? And if you have, I think I heard somebody drop the number of 40 or 50 complaints or 30 or 40 complaints over a year and a half. And you know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of people have come through and spent money down there. I just think some of the conditions are very harsh and unreasonable.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next comment, please.
Daniel McCracken.
Please state your name and address for the record.
How you doing? Daniel McCracken, 2361 East Vina Del Mar Boulevard. Good evening. Discussing the noise ordinances and amplified music. The city's laws are clear about acceptable decibel levels. I think it's been gone over numerous times. I live on Vina Del Mar, and like many of my neighborhood, I enjoy live music and have frequented various establishments that host it. List includes Jimmy B's, Caddy's, Coconut Charlie's, Toasted Bunkie, Don Cesar, Paradise Grill, Wharf, St. Pete Yacht Club, and of course Red, White, and Booze. I mean, it's not an exhaustive list. Everywhere plays music. My concern is the inconsistent enforcement of these noise ordinances. Are city officials equally present at these aforementioned venues when they play music within the allowed decibel limits? Do other establishments face the same threat of arrest for allowing a musician to set up, or do they have city officials monitoring noise levels on a weekly basis? Will these other establishments have governors installed on their equipment as well? The city decibel guidelines are explicit. If an establishment complies with these noise regulations, including time constraints, they should be allowed to exercise their right under city ordinances. We all value the beautiful community that we live in. It's a beautiful place. The principle of equal protection under the law, which is a cornerstone of American principles, should apply here. Let's ensure that this principles apply consistently to all businesses without bias. Either all businesses should be able to have live music within the current codified decibel limits, amplified or not, or none should be able to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Michael Kahn.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Michael Kahn. I live at 104 21st Avenue, there in Paso of the orange traffic cones. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. In review of this permit application, I see the applicant bears the burden of proof in each of the provisions. Not some, not most, each. We, the neighbors, are the ones that seem to be providing all the proof tonight. On the west side of Paso Grill Way, we echo Mr. Heisel's statements and remarks about the noise. During the life of this process, the applicant has not been credible and fails to comply. He violates and asks for permission or forgiveness later. In a technical meeting last month, he is purposely obtuse. He believed that musicians, if they were indoors, they were free to blare the music through outdoor speakers. He was instructed to remove a banner from the decks, yet it still remains. The application statement said that they want to be responsible and a good neighbor in the surrounding community, which I find jaw-dropping. A man's actions speak to his character. Well, let's look at some of his actions and other matters during this year. Earlier this year, he wished to tear down the wharf's fence, which is on the wharf's property. On the other side, he wanted a fence on the city's property. With your permission, we now have the Great Wall of Paso Grill, which is twice the standard height. Earlier this year, he began demolition of the former space at Gennaro's without a permit. He illegally parked a dumpster trailer in the active alleyway by my home for days. The alley is the lead up to my driveway. When notified of the violation, he did what any law-abiding citizen would do. He papered up the windows so you couldn't see inside and continued the internal demolition. Once he did obtain his permit, his workers were tossing trash barrels in the alleyway blindly, almost hitting my visitor's car as they were proceeding down the alleyway. The barrels laying in the alleyways, the workers would stare them down in a menacing way, and it's just intimidating. And just a week before, he built his propane tank storage tower inches from this alley. Who in their right mind would do something like that? It was a hazardous explosion or fire waiting to happen. Show me where the responsibility and good neighborliness is in all of this. The staff has concurred that there will be no effect on transportation and parking. Well, that's not true. This past summer, on some occasions, they used the alleyway as overflow parking. The neighborhood bully has to be stopped. If any type of permit is issued in this case, the applicant will wrap himself in it and proceed with reckless abandon. The applicant has not met his burden of proof. I think the commission's choices are very clear because I don't see a meeting of the minds. There is definitely division between what you're offering and what their stance is. I think you have to reject this application. Thanks.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Joe Mulholland.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Joe Mulholland, 199 21st Avenue. The applicant often mentions the wharf when why he should get approval for doing whatever he wants to do. I live in the same 500-foot envelope from his business and the wharf, and there's just no comparison between the wharf and what used to be secret as far as the noise goes. In his CUP application, he's admitted addressing the scale, function, and intensity of his planned use. Neither this facility nor the surrounding 6 businesses have ever had activity anywhere near the intensity, duration, or frequency of what they're doing or what they propose to do. Charles and the RWB say they intend to act responsibly and be good neighbors. From the very outset, RWB began blasting their music with no consideration whatsoever for the neighborhood. I'd never previously met Charles. However, since the RWB opened, we spoke twice. Once when I respectfully asked him to turn his music down, and I don't have enough time to tell you how that conversation went. Once when I apologize. The second time, when he yelled at me behind my back in the middle of the day when I was walking down Paso Grill Way to mind my own business, accusing me of calling the authorities on him for playing music without a permit. This public accusation was blatantly false. Charles and the RWB have been inappropriate and disrespectful in both deeds and actions. This establishment and its owner have pretty much done whatever they felt like doing, thumbing their noses at the community and city and causing a major negative effect on the quality of many of our lives. Past actions are the best indicator of future action. I strongly encourage the Commission to be acutely mindful of how this business operated without a permit. One can only guess how things will be if granted one. And I have a little more time. There was an earlier discussion about the sheriffs and no citations. Well, I've been to a number of the meetings and the mayor's meetings, and we know how all that goes. But the sheriffs do not carry a decibel meter. They don't care about the decibels. Unless it was 100 decibels, they wouldn't do anything. And I would encourage you to talk to the sheriff in the lobby and ask him that question. And lastly, for all the employees, and I understand they're interested in their jobs and they're intimidated by their owner. Charles knew what he was buying. It shouldn't be the citizen's responsibility or burden for the benefit of his added profit or desires or to have a honky-tonk to go play at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next comment, please.
Sorry. Richard? Yeah. No, I'm
Please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Livingston, 3115 East Vina Del Mar Boulevard. and been a resident here in St. Pete since about 2002. Just a couple of comments. As a result of listening to some of the people from RWB, they made reference to lost revenue from music being decreased or being affected. I guess my comment there would be, how much lost revenue is there as a result of negative publicity and speak amongst the neighborhood in our respective areas of the city? I know where we live, we support these establishments on a fairly regular basis. And as a result of what I'm hearing from my neighbors and friends, I won't support the establishment as a result of the way they're being treated. So that's something they may want to consider as far as lost revenue. Another issue that was brought up is the different establishments being played at by some of these musicians. And you people all know where those establishments are. They are made for music to be played at a louder level. Don Cesar, Isla del Sol, you keep on going down the line. The houses aren't right there. The residents aren't right there. None of these musicians live 50 to 100 feet from this music being played. And I would ask them, if they had families and young children, would they want to endure that on a nightly basis for their families? I think the answer would be no. So they have not experienced what some of these people have on a regular basis. And that's something to consider. If you have families listening to this music night in and night out, how would you feel after a long day of work and your kids are trying to study or whatever the case may be? That's a real concern. This is a residential area. It's not a party place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Clerk, I see you have a few more cards. Commissioner Grouse, unless memory fails me, I think some of those raised their hands the first time around. Would you verify that, please, City Clerk?
I can tell you the next person did not.
Okay.
She was on her own.
Okay.
And Kristen did not. I don't know where Rebecca and Danielle were sitting, so I can't confirm. But I can tell you the next two cards did not raise their hand to relinquish.
Okay. Just want to make sure we stay consistent.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next person, I'm sorry, is it Sarah Kate? Okay, Sarah Kate Bashirs.
Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Sarah Kate Bashirs. I live on 190 21st Avenue, and I live in the pocket of the Sound. And the first four houses, I can assure you, haven't made no noise complaints. And I also have been working at Red, White, and Booze for over 2 years now, and I've never felt intimidated by Charles, and I can assure you he's not done half of the things were said tonight. The music is really not that loud. I live on Vina. I'm the third house off the bridge. It's not loud. And I recognize almost half of the faces in here as customers who come in and listen to our music and enjoy our music and ask to be near the music. And I think it's kind of all getting blown out of hand. It's really not that loud. And I think if we all comply, it would be perfectly fine.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Kristen, sorry, I can't read your last name.
Janae?
Yes. Okay, yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Chris Janae. I live at 6385 13th Avenue South in Gulfport, but I'm speaking for my sister-in-law who lives at 250 Julie Circle South on Vina Del Mar. First of all, I noticed when we're being told where the owner lives, it's somewhere on the beach. Is it Path Grill or Vina?
If you'll please direct yourself this way.
I bet you it's not Path Grill or Vina.
Ma'am.
So, they're not affected.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
What they're doing, I will
Ma'am.
address you.
Ma'am, if you'll please speak in a calm,
What
normal manner
they're
and address
doing
us.
is no less than dumping a 20-year-old mobile home on the property next door to their house. And the occupants come, dump a couch in the front yard, and let chickens roam free range. These people are decreasing the value of every single home in that 500-foot area, those 89 houses. You were just talking about an excess in your budget. You're going to have to spend that on sheriffs, because I guarantee you these Vina people will be calling the second these people violate your ordinances. And they will. They've already proven it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Rebecca Brooks.
Good evening. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Brooks, live on Vina Del Mar, 144 South.
If you'll please pull the microphone down. Thank you.
You guys got to do the same thing. My name's Rebecca Brooks. I live at 144 South Tessier Drive, St. Pete Beach, Florida, on Vina. I've owned my home for more than 30 years. I'd like to read a little something to you that I wrote to my neighbors addressing this incident. This is getting way out of hand. Please be civil with your neighbors. My husband and I have lived on Vina for more than 30 glorious years and appreciate our little slice of paradise. Our home sits on the main canal not far from RWB. We often sit on our dock in the evening and rarely hear music from that establishment. We do, however, hear amplified music from the yacht club. Those that know live music realize no matter if it's a single act or an entire orchestra, some type of amplification is used. Obviously, I have nothing to gain by supporting RWB, except I would like to see a good neighbor get a fair shake. My husband and I have endured music from the Bush establishment, which I understand they don't own anymore. When the music got too loud or the fireworks got too bright and scared the heck out of our dogs, we simply went inside and we closed our windows and we put on our own music indoors. This man has done nothing but improve our neighborhood. He has probably spent more money than I can even imagine making improvements on that block. And I'm sorry, I just don't feel that he's being treated fairly as far as music, amplification. I mean, does the yacht club ever are there ever any complaints about the yacht club or the Bush establishment? And you all say you don't have decibels and you don't have written information on when officers have visited this establishment. Well, how can you even make that valid? If you don't have a written record or a police report, I mean, what are our sheriffs doing? If they're busy visiting these type of establishments, it certainly should be documented. It's easy to dictate a report. You don't have to write it. It's plain and simple. This man is a good man. I have no personal interest in this family, except that I don't think they're being treated fairly. And I thank you all.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Danielle T.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I am Danielle Trzynski at 2103 Pasig Railway. Okay. Okay. Let me start off by saying I love live music. I am a musician as well, and I am all supporting local talent, which I think most of us here are. But as long as it does not adversely or negatively impact other folks, and unfortunately Red, White, and Booze music does directly and negatively impact my family's home and peaceful enjoyment because of how loud the music is. It is often so loud that we hear it inside the home. And as much as I love hearing Wasting Away Again in Margaritaville, I don't want to hear it 5 days a week. Especially with COVID, a lot of us have moved to working from home. So now I hear the music not only in my home, but in my workplace. The music being loud also affects our property value, as who wants to move next to a bar playing loud music? I think we can all agree it sounds like we like the music, we like live music, we like the restaurant, we just want there to be some restrictions on the noise level. And unfortunately, time and time again, they have not proved to follow the rules. And as someone who has called to complain, when you call and you have to talk to the police and then nothing has changed, the music the next day is loud again, and the music is the next day loud again, you stop calling. I mean, what are you going to do? So I just feel a little helpless that this has been going on so long, and just basically want to be at my home without hearing their music, which I think is a fair ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
I don't have any more cards.
Thank you. Commissioners?
So what you would do now is close the public hearing, and I would advise you to give counsel or the applicants some time if they want to address any of the issues that came up during the public hearing.
Okay. We will now close the public hearing, and if council has any additional comments?
I don't, sir. I think some of the points were made. I think most of the points that regarding the sound that were made were talking about time and volume. Like I said previously, and I don't want to just continue to repeat myself, the city proposed 70 and 55 as the decibel readings. We're agreeable to those, and the volume we're even limiting to farther or more than the city proposed. And some of the points, one of the points was to lower the volume to 65. It's 55 at the Residence Edge. So I think what we've agreed to, or what we're agreeable to, would be addressing that. And I think somebody else pointed out that it's distracting for school children who are studying, and adults or parents who are trying to go to work the next morning. The way I interpret that, and I know not everybody is the same way, but that tends to imply the weekday. And again, we've proposed to stop the music at 9 on weekdays from Wednesday to Friday, and again, the decibel point. And I think Mr. Vice Mayor brought up a point, I believe it was you, sir, at the very beginning of this portion of the hearing, a conditional use permit, and Mr. Dickman, correct me if I'm wrong, but a conditional use permit can be revoked if there is some sort of a non-compliance. I would have to come back in front of the commission board, and my ask would be to allow my client to prove to you that he can be in compliance, rather than, I understand there's a lot of hard feelings tonight. My position is, my point is, let's bury that and let's move forward as a community. Allow my client to prove to you that he can be in compliance with our ask, which again is the hours and the days proposed during the week, and then that being the just restricted to the decibel rating, not the type of instrument or equipment. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Does your client want to make any comments?
He does not.
Okay.
Sir. Thank you.
So what I'll do is advise you that your job as quasi judges is to take the criteria as Brandon outlined it to you, and it's verbatim from the code, and look for competent substantial evidence. Lay testimony from the public is acceptable in a quasi-judicial hearing as long as it's fact-based and not just subjective and arbitrary or anything like that. Lawyers like me, unfortunately, Matthew, we can't give expert testimony. We can make legal arguments all the time. As you know, Brandon Berry is the city's planner. He's a AICP certified planner. He is the city's expert, and provided you, in my opinion, as expert testimony with his staff report. So that's really how you need to approach this. And I think if I recall right, there were 2 items in the criteria that staff primarily focused on in terms of how they crafted these conditions in order to meet, if they could meet those criteria, those 2 criteria. It had to do with compatibility, I think, and stuff like that. Those what the criteria was about. But it's really up to you to deliberate this.
If I may. So I'm going to take the noise the music one first. I think what we all need to consider, from what I'm hearing, is the totality of the evidence, is that we need to look at this from not only whether or not, what if we're going to approve it, what parameters, but be keeping in mind that this should be self-executing enforcement. What do I mean by that? I mean by we should craft this in a way, and I think the tools are here to do it, so that the applicant has no control over whether he's complied or not, because the sound is controlled and the volume is controlled by a lockbox. When that box is locked up, after the testing is done at 70 decibels for the live music portion, then everything runs through that system at 70 decibels. It can never be any louder. So it has to be a scenario like that. Because from what I'm hearing, I don't know how we can ever enforce the decibels in this ordinance without a lockbox, where it's already set and cannot be adjusted, and the speakers are turned in towards the building for the amplified portion of this CUP application recommendation. So the amplification, we talk about the musicians bringing their own speakers. Musicians do bring speakers. I have many amplifiers, okay? None of them have basses in them. They're single cone speakers, 12-inch, 14-inch, 10-inch, 412s. They're not bass speakers. So we can avoid music that has bass. The musicians can plug in their equipment that's not the amplifier, can plug it into the sound system and use the sound system that's there, at least for the amplified portion of the music, so they're not bringing their own amplification. I just don't want a scenario where the residents are subject to the city trying to enforce something that the fingers are going to start pointing, well, it's the musician, and over here the police are in the parking lot, so we'll turn it down, and then it goes back up. So we have to be mindful that if we're going to allow amplified music out there, it has to be in a fashion where it's a lockbox that is not accessible, so that we know it's 70 decibels and it can't be more than 70 decibels, but that has to be the scenario.
And if I may, that's what we did with the Hotel Zamora. The owner basically set up a control, and any DJ that went to play there had to use his system, plug that in, and play. They could play their music, but it would have to go through the system that had been officially set up.
But Zamora the onus was on the owner, Dr. Manger, I believe, at the time.
Yeah.
But it worked.
But it worked.
That system worked.
He controlled it. He put...
Yes.
Well, through an agreement with us.
Yes.
We went through this similar type of an agreement with that type of a system, and that seemed to take care of the issues. Right. But we also
he had the control, as you're saying, that the different performers, the different people that came in, did not bring their own speakers. Everybody has to go through his control box.
This is not an issue about live music or no live music. Live acoustic music is live music. I have heard no one say no live music. The question is the darn music too loud? And I haven't heard one person say, I won't go there if they don't turn it up. I won't go there if they don't play at the same volume I'm used to. What I'm hearing is, I get up and leave because we can't have a conversation when the musician's done with their break and they're coming back on to play. So, I think under a circumstance, there should be live music there, but I think we just need to be mindful about building in enforcement so that we're not enforcing on the back end because we haven't been successful enforcing it on the back end in the past.
Commissioner Gross?
So are you saying that we should allow amplified music there all the time?
No, I'm actually in favor of the restrictions that are set
Okay.
forth in the staff recommendation.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm in favor of too, and I just wanted to make sure we
Yeah.
were on the same page there.
Yeah. I just think that for the amplified portion, we need to make sure that, and we'll rely on council, that this language gets us where we want to be. Ambiguity gets us lack of enforcement and violations. That's what it gets us. So I want something that is enforceable, and if we make sure all of this compliance is done when whatever speaker system we require and whatever lockbox and volume, once we do that, it should be 70 decibels every single time and nothing more every single time they play amplified music. And the rest of the time it's acoustic, and acoustic music is different than amplified music.
Absolutely.
Because you have to force your guitar and force your voice to get up to certain decibels instead of singing in a normal tone. So that's a whole lot different than taking your wrist and making a turn clockwise on your volume knob. And I will say, as somebody who plays out, the longer you play, the lower it sounds to you, and the more you end up turning it out as time goes on. Rarely does that volume stay at the same level. So we just need to make sure that that volume, I think if we're in agreement on this, it's in that lockbox like Zamora. There's, like you said, there's precedent for it.
I'd like to say a couple things, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I know everybody's got a lot of other things to do with their time in their lives, so I appreciate everybody coming out and voicing their opinion. There have been a few things said about equally applying these laws, and the reason why we have a conditional use permit is they're all a little bit different. What's unique about this is the proximity of residents to this location, and we've heard that tonight. I think the staff came up with some good recommendations and good conditions. I was concerned about number 8, amplified music, but I think based on what I'm hearing, seems like we can work within this, the parameters that the staff set out in condition number 8. So I'm generally in favor of approving the things that the staff has outlined.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Look, again, thanks everybody for coming out and sharing their views. I know this is a very many people interested in this topic. And first, I want to say it is good to see, the residents investing in businesses here in the city, making the property better. I think we heard from multiple people the property is better than it's been in quite some time. We did hear some comments. Are we being fair to others? Yes, we are. We have precedent. I mean, Hotel Zamora was one, and I won't mention others, but there have been from other bars that some who came up to speak, we have had issues with them, with music, with decibels. And we have worked as a commission over the past few years on each one of these, working with the owner to find the balance. And you've probably heard me say before, we're a small barrier island. We don't have a lot of space. We need to figure out how to work together. It would be great if we had more space, and between our commercial properties and our residential properties, we don't. I mean, and we all live here by choice, and we know why we live here, as many have said tonight. This property is a bit unique because of where it's located in the water and with that curve, so the sound carries in a different way than from other properties. So we just have to figure out how do we balance that, and it's a two-way street. But we've proven before that working with the business owners, we can make this work and find the right balance point between running the business and allowing residents to have quiet enjoyment of their properties. But it takes a two-way street. It takes cooperation on both sides. I think as we talked, we have built into the CUP itself a review process and the ability to pull the CUP or cancel the CUP if it's violated. And we have these very same discussions with just about every applicant that comes through and reminding the applicants, it's got to be, this is what you're signing up for. I think there's there's uneasiness. We've heard from some of the speakers that how do you know the owner is going to agree and follow these, and how are we going to enforce that? And that's on us as a city to make sure that the T's and C's that are being agreed to, as with any, I'll call contract, are being agreed to. We do have decibel meters. Our code enforcement has decibel meters, and we do have them with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office for when our code enforcement is not working. So they can go out, they do go out, and they do take decibel readings. So those parameters are in place. I'm hoping that whatever we, as we go forward, in which whatever we approve or is complied with, and we don't have to have this discussion, because we think the desire here is to make this work. We all live, as we said, we live on the beach, we enjoy being outdoors, we enjoy, that's why we live here. That's why we put up with what happened a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, those are, just jotted some notes down, but those are the issues. So thank you. Mr. Mayor, to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Graf?
Good.
Okay. I don't think I have anything to add to what I've said previously. I think the staff has been generous. I think the fact that the residents, a great number, agree with the conditions and stipulations, I think is very generous. So, thank you, Commissioners.
I'd like to make a motion. This motion is to approve Resolution 2023-08, Conditional Use Permit 23034, with regards to the deck as recommended. That's Part 1 of the application, without any changes or amendments as recommended by staff. And then Part 2 is to approve the recommendations of staff with regards to outdoor music and amplified music with the following changes. I'll go to paragraph 8 in the middle, where it says instruments shall be limited to string instruments. There should be a period there, and we should remove unless otherwise approved by the city manager. And the other amendment is that once that the city staff, when they're approving the outdoor equipment for the purposes of amplified music, as specified in this staff report, that they also include a lockbox on the volume control, and that once that volume control has been set and the decibels have been measured by the city's decibel meter, that lockbox shall be closed and locked and only accessible by the code officers in the sheriff's office, so that it never exceeds 70 decibels.
That might be.
Yeah, so usually what we do in these situations is that I don't think the city needs to have control over the private property lockbox, but what they need to do is say, okay, there's a manager on site. This is the manager's the only one, or the owner designate somebody who is the only one who can access it. That way, when someone shows up to the property, to investigate a complaint, they know that there's only one person that could have changed the dial or done something like that.
Can it be the applicant's designee, the applicant's designee, and a city official?
I'm not sure that we want to put the city in a situation where we have a key to something, but I think with the other ones, they have very sophisticated sound experts who come out, and they know how to set up the speakers, and then they put that box on there, and they do some testing, and it's.
Then I'll amend it that once the box is locked, that the key is maintained by the applicant or the applicant's designee.
Right.
Who shall be named. Somebody with some responsibility.
Who shall be named, and that name be disclosed to the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has worked out well at the Hotel Zamora. The other thing is when you look at general conditions, number 11, that if there's a violation, we can rescind this.
Bring it back.
And that's kind of the thing that will hopefully keep everybody honest and won't make us go through something like this again.
So we can redraft condition number 8. We'll work with staff to get it right, the way that you had expressed it.
But with those changes, that's my motion.
So I will second that motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have two items on that. The first is, are we being too prescriptive on string music versus any other instrument? The key is what I heard from residents and the comments made is the decibel level. So whether it's a string instrument or someone playing the flute or any whatever instrument, it's the decibel level that's the concern. So are we being too prescriptive by just saying string instruments? And second is I think the name being provided to the city puts some onus on the city. Now we've got to go track, well, the key is now that the applicant's designee is Mary. Well, Mary's not working today, so Mary called in sick, so she gave it to Joe. Well, where's Joe? Well, we don't know. And Joe, did they inform the city?
Yeah, I think
to me, we put all this on the applicant.
Well, I guess the way I read that was more of a position, like the manager.
Yeah.
That's, I think, was the intention, is that someone that you could ask for, I'd like to speak with the manager, not specifically a name of a person. I was thinking more title.
Yeah. I mean, what this does is take away the artist's own amplifiers that could be set up in different ways, and you know what I mean. So it sets up a permanent speaker system that they use.
Okay. And
I think with the instruments, especially with percussions, you could easily exceed the drum set, the noise level is, and a drum set might not exceed the dB level, but the vibrations alone will carry and then shake your windows. Even though it's not above 65 dB, you'll still feel the sound pressure. I think that's why the prescription's in there, because you could exceed with just acoustic instruments in that specific instance.
It's too easy to manipulate that sound from a volume standpoint because it's most likely not going to be amplified. It's going to be acoustic, and it's kind of consistent with the exclusion of a prohibition against bass, and I think it's consistent with that.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Would the commissioners be opposed to a 5-minute recess?
I think that's a good idea.
We will reconvene at 8:45.
Everybody's anxious to get going, but
session. Next, we have item 6B, a discussion or action item on the
City manager.
City
Okay,
manager.
yeah, I know we moved a lot of things around, so I just want to make sure we're in the right place. So I would like to make a proposal, I think in the best interest of the city, to work out an early separation agreement with the city manager. I talked to the city manager about this today, and I think he's in general agreement that as long as we treat him fairly with severance package per his contract, the city will also want a release. And I would propose as a motion that we ask our city attorney, Andrew Dickman, to work with Alex Ray and Alex's attorney to work out an agreement within parameters so that the mayor could sign that agreement. Andrew, you want to add a few things there, some parameters that would make the commission feel?
One parameter for sure is that, there are different provisions. He's got his employment contract as well as there's a Florida statute, and then we have our code. So it couldn't exceed 20 weeks for sure, but we have to look at all that. And to be fair to Alex, who has an attorney, I mean, I'm going to need to work with his attorney as well. So that and any unused, I guess, any unused PTO time, things like that. Those are the general standard things that you see in this kind of mutual. This is a mutual separation. That's it.
And it would be based on the contract renewal terms, not the initial contract.
Yeah, so in the contract, there's an initial term and then there's renewal terms. So we would have to look at that.
Yeah, but the renewal terms didn't affect the separation portion of the agreement.
Understood.
Okay.
I would amend the motion to include a timeline, to have an agreement in place that the commission can approve by the next commission meeting, which would be September 26th.
Okay.
That was actually what I had in mind. I didn't necessarily want to put a time frame only because I want to have them have the ample time, but I actually ironically talked about that same time frame. That would be 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That seems like that would be an ample amount of time.
So it would be something we will bring back to the commission then, or based on the mayor's request.
Well, let me ask this, if it's within the parameters of what we just talked about, I'm okay with the mayor signing that, as long as it's within those parameters.
Do you see a problem with that?
I don't see a problem with it. Like I said, in all fairness to the city manager and his attorney, I mean, I don't know what other things that might come up. I think if things got a little bit more complicated, that I felt like it needed to have a full discussion up here, then I think that would be fine. You could delegate the authority to sign this type of an agreement to the mayor if it's kept within the parameters that you're talking about. But if the list of demands get to a point where it has to be discussed at the commission level, then I think we'll have to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I would agree with giving our city attorney and the mayor the authority. If you feel comfortable it's within these parameters, if you feel like you need to bring it back, then you need to bring it back, but I'd be okay with that.
Just for clarification, I did speak to Commissioner Kreslowski about also the effective date, because you need to name an interim manager, and so the effective date of the agreement would be whatever decision-making process you go through for the nomination of an interim manager, because you cannot be without a manager. So you need to name somebody.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I kind of didn't want to roll both things into one single motion.
Should we have a second motion on?
I've got some thoughts, some ideas how to do that. So do you want to take that first one first, and then?
Yep, let's do that. Let's finish the one motion. Do we have a second as amended?
What was the motion again?
It was a motion to have a early separation agreement with the city manager, and authorize the city attorney to work with the city manager and city manager's attorney to allow for severance and for the city to receive a separation agreement and then with the modified motion to have a timeline to have that complete by on or before September 26th. Because actually, I mean, we do have another,
Budget meeting.
yeah, we have the budget meeting on the 23rd, so the 26th, the next regular commission meeting, Tuesday, September 26th.
And just to clarify, the charter allows the city manager to request a hearing?
No, so this is simply a mutual, a separation by mutual agreement. So we're not talking about that scenario whatsoever.
Okay, understood.
Correct.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Lawson?
Please state your name and address for the record.
William Lawson, 5407 Leilani Drive, speaking as an individual. Simply curious, as a city resident, I know we commissioned a study and there was an investigation of sorts regarding the city manager. How is the city commission going to handle disclosure of that report, that information to the city residents?
Thank you.
So that's still ongoing. We have information. This would obviously negate any necessity for a report.
Actually, it wouldn't. We've asked for a report. So we've asked for a report. So we should get the report regardless. We've commissioned an investigation, and we have asked for a written report in a bullet point fashion, and I think we have the right to have it because we may want to use it as for instructionally on how we want to move forward.
And yes, so yes, I agree. I think we have information, and it could be repurposed for the purpose of the next, whoever comes in next, and instructions on that. But I think the whole point of an early separation by mutual agreement is to avoid any any types of discussions about.
I understand that, and I'm fine with that, and I'm not suggesting this gets aired. There are issues with that we've asked to look into 119 public records requests, and part of my query was to make sure that we get a system in place. If we don't have it in place, then it may include software and document management that gets us to a place where we're more efficient and quicker, so maybe there's some guidance there.
Yeah,
I mean, so that's kind of what I'm looking.
Probably amend the report to be more prescriptive.
Right.
I'm looking for it to be instructional as we move forward.
We understand.
And really disassociate the report from the subject of the inquiry.
Okay, fine, no problem. Yep.
All right, City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frzlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Commissioner Frzlowski?
So the other question is to who to appoint as an interim, and I don't think it would be fair to appoint any current city employees to that, so I've been thinking about it, and I know none of you had a chance to work with our previous city manager, Wayne Saunders, but he was did a great job, very even keel, sharp guy. He knows the city. He knows the employees. He knows a lot of the projects that are currently going on.
He's retired, he didn't leave.
He retired and actually spent some time, he lives actually in Claremont, but has a place in North Carolina. And I called him up, and he had just come back from North Carolina, and kind of much to my surprise, he said he would be willing to step in on relatively short notice. I did not kind of talk to him about timing, because all this kind of came up pretty quickly. And but I did ask Andrew to call him today, because I just didn't have time to call him up and ask a little bit more about timing. And I don't know that we have an exact time, but it sounds like
he's
pretty
available.
promptly.
He told me that he's available whatever time frame is worked out with, whenever, like whatever the time frame is. He said he's happy to step in and do.
I had a similar conversation with Wayne this morning.
Okay.
Just thinking about, we're getting to the point where we're going wherever we were going with the investigation, but just to prepare a plan B, and similar feedback. I mean, Wayne, he didn't let on that anyone else had called him, but that's fine. And appropriate. But yeah, I mean, I think, because and for those who are watching, I mean, obviously, we need to ensure as a commission that we maintain services to the city. We keep the city running, right? And that's something that we have to always be cognizant of. How are we going to keep the city running and deliver services to residents and keep the city moving forward? So,
I think one consideration is our fiscal year starts October 1st. That might be, if that's a date that's workable, might be worth looking at.
October 1st, would it be a Sunday?
You just got a text.
Or
that we're on
October 2nd.
pause. On TV, we're on pause.
does somebody have a video or something going, or am I hearing things?
I think it's just the crickets.
It's really loud. It's the crickets.
Is it?
Yes.
Crickets.
Ask them, I refreshed it.
Yeah, Jim, Chief, can you take care of it? Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like simultaneously while I'm working with Alex and his attorney, I could be working with Wayne on an employment contract.
So we could have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I would make a motion to authorize our city attorney to work with Wayne Saunders to work out an employment agreement concurrently as he's working with Alex on the other agreement.
Second.
Do we have any?
Just one point, just for your edification. You're targeting October 1st, but no later than October 4th, because I'm scheduled to go on vacation on October 4th for a week and a half. So it should be by October 1st or thereabouts, because right,
and
no later than the 4th, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if it makes any sense to have any overlap, where if Wayne could start earlier and talk with you about.
Or the overlap can be later on in some sort of another form, and we can probably work that out with Andrew, right?
Yeah, good point.
Right.
Any audience comments?
No, but since I was dealing with the pause, I could not pay attention to you all. So I know that you made a motion?
Yeah, I made a motion to authorize the city attorney to work with Wayne Saunders for an employment agreement.
And something about October?
No later than October 4th, because Alex is he's got a trip scheduled. So but that's.
And I seconded it.
And ideally, it might occur, if it could occur, by the 26th, 2 weeks from tomorrow, because we'll be here at a commission meeting anyway.
Yeah.
There was a pause on the video feed.
On the TV? Oh, online?
It's working.
It's working now.
Yeah. All right, City Clerk, will you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I want to thank Alex for his service to the city. We've a lot of things done in these last 4.5 years.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
I would also like to say that the 3.5 years that I've been working on the commission, it's been a pleasure to work with you, and I think that we've done a lot of good things in the city, and you've helped us move forward, and I appreciate all your help.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have item 5B, which has been referred. Do we still have to read it?
I'm sorry, no, we do not.
Okay.
But we do need to go, since we moved some items around, we do need to go to the first reading of ordinance 2023-13, item 4A of your agenda. We skipped over that to do the CUP.
We have to do.
Next, we have item 4, ordinances, first reading of ordinance 2023-13, parking meters, wastewater, and reclaimed water fees.
Okay, an ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, amending the city's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 86, Utilities, Article 4, Reclaimed Water System, Division 2, Reclaimed Water Use, Section 86-125, Rates and Charges, amending Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, implementing an hourly public parking rate increase, implementing an increase in reclaimed water fees, implementing a wastewater connection increase, providing for codification, conflict, severability, correction of scrivener's error, construction, publication, and an effective date.
Thank you. Right. We have a
Yeah, these are the companion items that support the budget levels that were approved at the prior budget meeting. So basically provides increases in parking fees, reclaimed water rates, and sewer fees.
Commissioner Groh?
So I spoke to some residents, just for clarity, so we're raising the parking rates, and that's fine. The question, why and should we still be maintaining the holiday flat rates? Right, because on holidays and other days, we have a flat rate for hours, and I think the break-even point was 5.5 hours.
We're proposing to raise that from $20 to $25 a day. But if you want to, the flat rate on the large holidays makes the enforcement easier. So the officers can really focus on the overflow on the residential parking areas. So once we know that the space has been paid, we don't have to be coming back and checking, on a regular basis that, is the hour up or not? And then it can be worrying more about the impact to the neighborhoods. So that's the logic behind that. We did run analysis as to whether we used to make more money in the prior system on an hourly basis or on this system with a $25 flat rate. And we did make more money with the flat rate. Because what happens is that what people pay the entire day, they don't necessarily stay the entire day. So there are spaces that will be sold twice at the flat rate. And the $25 basically is equivalent to about 6 hours of beach time. So
right, they'd have to be over 6 hours. So.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And then the question on, just to clarify on the reclaimed water fee. Mm-hmm. This is just a pass-through from the county. This reflects, I think, we've been updated at 15% every year for the next few years.
And we're passing 15% last year, and it's 15% next year. So we were able to absorb a little bit of last year's increase because we had a reduction in the consumption. So we're able to absorb that. But we do need to keep up with what they're doing, because between last year and this year is basically a 30% increase on their numbers, and we're not going nearly as much as that.
So do we have a time frame on the meters? Because originally we had agreed to put 2 years ago to put meters onto the large users.
Yes, and we have that in place.
On the one large user. So Are we off then with doing any meters, and we're going to now wait for the county?
The county has basically, in the last few months, changed their policy, and they want to do meter on every single house. I believe that their goal, I think, is to do St. Pete Beach by 2027. So it's not tomorrow. It's going to take them several years to get that done.
And that includes the large users, the commercial, all users?
They will do everybody, yeah.
So can we get those meters installed then on the large users?
We had them installed. We had them installed in the 15 largest users, I think it is. Right.
Okay. And then the wastewater increase is
just reflecting the fact that we have to start making payments on the loan that we took for the main system, the $80 million that we borrow. Next year we're actually making payments on that loan, and we had to accommodate for that.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this item? Any public comments? Do we have a motion?
I'd move to approve the first reading of ordinance 2023-13, Archimedes wastewater and reclaimed water fees.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fryslowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 5B, Resolution 2023-10 has been deferred. The next item is Resolution 5C, Resolution 2023-12, Stormwater Service Assessment.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, establishing the rate of stormwater service assessments, approving stormwater service non-ad valorem assessment roles, and providing for conflicts, severability, and an
I
effective
think he
date.
moved it to 6.
Thank you. Sheila?
This is the annual non-ad valorem property assessment for the operation and maintenance of the city's stormwater infrastructure. The assessments are included as a component of the property tax bill, and the annual requirements for imposing the assessments are similar to those of the millage and budget adoption process. So there's 2 billing tiers. Tier 1 is assessed per parcel basis, and the Tier 2 is assessed based upon impervious surface area. And so we're proposing no changes for fiscal year '24.
And the reason you're bringing it in, just for clarity for the public, is by statute requires us to have this read every year, even if no change.
Correct.
Any discussion?
The only issue, I mean, and I've brought this up previously, is I don't have a better suggestion, but the way it's structured doesn't give users any a push to reduce consumption, right? So this is based on fresh water use, no?
No, this is a stormwater rate.
Okay, I'm backwards.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought we were going to say it doesn't give them any incentive to have less pavement, because it doesn't. It's a flat fee per residence.
There is an incentive for commercial properties that are larger,
Right.
that if they have more pervious areas, they can get, a reduction, right?
I apologize, I always get those two backwards, so thank you for correcting me. Okay, but it doesn't give anybody a reason to have less pavement.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12, Stormwater Service Assessment.
Second motion.
Do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fryslowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5D, Resolution 2023-13, Historic Preservation Grant.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, authorizing the mayor to execute the Don Cesar Place and Belle Vista Neighborhood Historic Survey Grant Agreement, including any amendments within the State of Florida Department of State Division of Historical Resources, and providing for an effective date.
So this resolution is to accept the $50,000 grant that we received from the state in order to do the survey work in the Don Cesar and Bella Vista neighborhoods. Once we get a fully executed agreement with them, we would put that out to bid to select who would be doing the survey work, and that would come back to you as well.
Any discussion? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 2023-13 Historic Preservation Grant.
Second.
Any audience comments? City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5E, Resolution 2023-17, State of Local Emergency.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, declaring a state of emergency in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community and property, both public and private, from the hazards of Hurricane Idalia / Tropical Storm Idalia / Invest 93L, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you.
Isn't this what we did at our special meeting?
Yes, and you have to do it every week.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Any discussion?
How long do we need to do this for?
I think this will probably be the last week. I don't think there's a need for a special meeting next week.
And have we executed to date anything under this emergency order?
Yeah,
Yes.
I will give you, some examples.
COVID.
Today, for example, I suspended the infractions for reclaimed water usage because it came to my attention, and rightfully so, that people needed to water more to flush out the salt from the vegetation and everything else. So normally, I would have had to come to the city commission and say, I need approval to suspend this for 30 days. This is the kind of things that allows to happen, during the declaration of emergency. But I think by next week, we probably won't have any more surprises that we need to address. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-17.
Second.
Any audience comments?
I did receive a speaker's card for a non-agenda public item, but we had missed that, and I believe this could easily fall under that because he does ask to speak about sand collection in Pacific Way. So Max, if you'd like to come forward, please, you have 3 minutes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Max Assenheimer. I live at 300 Pacific Way. I've spoken with Mike Clark before about this, and this is Dog Beach down between 1st and 2nd on South St. Pete Beach. Forever it was a sandbar until about in the early 2000s. I think the Public Works worked with the Army Corps of Engineers and brought in a bunch of pilings, drilled a bunch of pilings, brought in a bunch of boulders, and flatbeds. And what they did was they set them up down there to hope to allow the water to go back into the, go back over the seawall. What's going on though now is that Dog Beach always was a sandbar. It was always washed away with a storm. It came back, and storms would take care of it. Now what you have happening in the last storm, which a couple weeks ago, the water was pouring right over the seawall. About 3/4 of all the water that came down in South St. Pete Beach came over Dog Beach, just because the sand's right up there. Now you get about ready to spend a lot of money on raising the seawall down there. You're not going to take care of that problem unless you look at this. If this is a structural item now, then you're not going to be able to touch it, remove the boulders or the pilings. But if it's removable, you will save yourselves a lot of money. You'll save yourselves, the city, a lot of money, and the residents will thank you. All right, one of the residents down there, 102 First Ave, they had water halfway, up to their waist, in their back units. I mean, it's one of the lowest parts down there. So if you don't take the time to look at what's been done structurally down there or not structurally, if those boulders and the pilings are removed and it goes back to a sandbar, then you will have a chance of succeeding with a higher seawall for a longer period of time. But if you just go back and put a seawall in there, the sand's going to go right back up to it, and as soon as the next storm's going to come, it's going to go washing right over it just like it did. And Chris lives down there. You know, I've seen him, you know, many a time, you know, right around the neighborhood, and he knows what I'm talking about. And this, it's just I mean, you guys have been dealing with the sand removal down there. I mean, hell, I hope you're putting it right back on the front of the beach. But, you know, it's because it all came into the street. But please look into that, and that would help the city save a lot of money, I think, in the future. You know, just in the public works, what's going on there now to get rid of the sand. But that's what I have to say on that, so I hope you take my advice and just look into it. I don't know if you can do anything anymore, but one other thing is that, are you guys the guys to talk about paving my alley? Because my alley was paved from the 60s up until 2000, and then you put in seashell, and ever since then it's been a disaster. So I may have to speak to Alex about that one, but thank you guys for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You can check with Mike Clark, because he's got a plan on your alley and everybody else's.
All right, and Mike walked the beach with me, and we took pictures, but couldn't do anything at that time. And this is when they built the, they put $1 million pumping station in. The pumping station was closed, was shut off at 12 midnight, you know, on the night of the storm. It didn't go working again until 7 the next night. The water started to recede already, but that will help if you keep it on, especially if the storm's far away. And if the power goes out, I understand. You know, but that's what happened down there.
Thank you, sir.
All right, have a good night, gentlemen.
Thank you.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislavsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5F, Resolution 2023-16, Florida Job Growth Grant Amendment.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, authorizing the mayor to execute any and all amendments to the Florida Job Growth Grant Agreement with the State of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and pursue the prerequisites to secure a notice to proceed and providing for an effective date.
Yeah, this is a grant that we received to be able to pay for about half the cost of rehabilitating Pump Station 1, which is the main pump station that takes all of the sewer out of the city. Total project cost is in the neighborhood of $4 million. We had a call with the Department of Economic Opportunity recently, and they submitted 2 amendments to the grant agreement that they wanted to get implemented prior to releasing the money for expenditures. And the most important one is that the money has to be spent by June 30, 2024. So we basically got about 9 months to get this money expended. Our engineers and our public works people feel that we can meet that threshold because it is going to be the first $2 million of the expenditure that has to be done. It's not a 50% of the $2 million. So we can probably meet that requirement. But that's basically what the amendment is, but it's at their request, so we need to approve this to be able to stay in line to get the funding.
Any discussion?
Two comments. We signed this in April. We authorized the execution back in April of '22, and we haven't spent anything to date. So we're 15, 18 months later.
They've been doing design.
Right. I guess, do we, so we've got the runway for...
Yeah, so the design is completed, has been submitted to the state for them to approve. The contract agreement has also been worked on, so all the specs are ready to be put up. So the moment that this is executed, they give us the approval, we put it out in the street.
So then we need to get the notice to proceed, because the clause says we need the notice to proceed. We have to start within 60 days, but then we've got to finish it by
June.
Less than a year.
Right.
Okay. The other comment, I have a comment. The action is for approving Amendment 1, but on the second page on 169, Section 2 is authorizing the mayor to execute any and all amendments.
Prospectively. So if anything else happens that the state wants us to amend the agreement, because we're in such a time crunch, we want to put the option allowing the mayor to execute those agreements without having to come to the commission because sometimes depends on the schedule.
Understood.
We might lose a week or two by coming to the commission.
So my question then, is the action worded properly? Because the action just, or is it the entire resolution?
Most of the title block, too. So by adopting the resolution, you're essentially adopting that
Okay.
in the title block.
So the agenda report then was, yeah, okay.
You just read the title block, that's what it says to me.
Thank you. No more comments.
Move to adopt Resolution 2023-16.
Second.
City Clerk, do we have any audience comments? Will you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5G, Public Works Roof Design.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The reason I pulled this out for what I hope is a quick discussion, I know Mike isn't here. If we look at the timeline, let me get the page. We're not going to finish this for quite some time. The activities will be performed basically about 8 months from the notice to proceed. And when I remember when Mr. Clark was here and explained to us why he needed to do it, the roof was falling. The roof was caving in. So can we really wait 8 months? And I have to defer to Commissioner Frizlowski, since, you know, these projects is 8 months seem to be a reasonable time to get a design on a roof. Because then after that, then we have the construction, so now we'll be looking at.
Then we have to bid.
And we have to bid, right. So meanwhile, we've got the Public Works team with the roof falling in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly the condition of the roof, but if I was roofing, I'd try and avoid 4 months, June, July, August, September. There's always the rainy months. So I would say ideally you get the design done and the construction done by next May. So.
Yeah, I'm just worried that we've got a condition for our Public Works team. And again, I haven't been over there, and I know that we're doing forensic work.
My advice is move. I'm not sure why it would take, without knowing all the details. I know it's a little bit more complicated, because I had some questions as city manager. So I mean, they have half, and there's a forensic person, and there's the architect designing it, but they could move it up. I would say they need to ideally move this thing up. And
so do you want to approve it with the condition of negotiating a faster schedule with the
Yes.
contractor?
Yes.
And ideally to complete it by May. You don't really want to go into next June.
Right.
You ideally don't want to be re-roofing in those 4 months.
Yeah, you have to strip the roof.
It's not that big of a roof. It's not that big of a building. I mean,
But you know, as soon as you do it, it rains.
yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
So I'll move to request authorization of expenditures of $82,194.18 under the continuing engineering services contract with Half Associates Incorporated for the Public Works roof replacement and waterproofing design, with a request to improve the schedule to complete the work by the end of May of 2024.
I would say the construction work, not just the design, because this schedule actually has the design finishing up on May 12th. So they need to improve that
So to complete,
substantially.
to complete the project, including construction, by the end of May 2024.
Yeah. Second.
Any audience comments? City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 6A, Comprehensive Plan Study Proposal and Direction. And if I may, I know this is the city manager's agenda item. You know, based on the discussion that we already had earlier this evening, it might be worth deferring this action or when we have a new city manager? Would that be?
Well, the request by the commission was to bring, or to narrow the proposals down to 3. We only got 2. So I think the ball right now is for the commission to, discuss, or you want to have a workshop, because there's no role really for the city manager to narrow, because there's only 2, right? So my suggestion is that you guys have a workshop, review the proposals, and see if you feel that either of these 2 companies are all qualified to do what the scope is going to be done. By the time of that workshop, you'll probably have Wayne on board, and you have Andrew. So, so my recommendation is that you agree to have a workshop and get Amber to do one of her Google, what do you call it? Doodle, Google, whatever. Her McDoodle, right, items.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the 2 and from the minutes of the planning board's discussion, it was pretty obvious there was only one really qualified candidate.
Yes.
The first one read great?
That's true. They only felt that there was really only one qualified.
The first company read great, but not for this job.
Right. And then you have to determine whether that company does have the expertise to do the work that you're envisioning.
I think Member DeAmpert had a good suggestion, and I didn't see it addressed in the minutes, and I didn't have a chance to speak with him, and that was to find out the work that this firm had done for the city of Oldsmore, just as a reference. Because certainly the first firm has done some pretty good work, but again, not for us, not for this environment.
Yeah. Also, just for your edification, there were about 30 companies that downloaded the request for letters of interest. So they saw it, they chose not to bid, but the information got up there. 30 companies downloaded it. Why they didn't bid, that we don't know that.
I know we gave them a very short time frame. If we open it up for, say, another 60 days, do you think there's a possibility that we might get more?
Yeah, there's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, it could be that the timing was tight.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them very little time.
Mm-hmm.
But we really didn't ask for a lot of information either.
It was still 15 pages, I think.
Yeah, but that's not unusual in our business. How much time do we give them to respond?
I believe 30 days. I think
That's actually ample time. I mean, when we're doing these, we're given 30 days and we're asked to do volumes of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff. So, I mean, we could do that. But I guess my only concern is it may even scare off the one who submitted, because sometimes you think then, okay, you didn't really want to pick me, so why even bother to resubmit? That would be my only concern about that.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just, again, pursue what Member DeAmpert suggested, see what work they've done for Oldsmore. It could be a perfect match, or it could be, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to move this forward. I mean, waiting another 60 days could help, but then we lose another 60 days in the process. So how do we reach out to them? Do we reach out to Oldsmore or reach out to the company and ask for the report, or ask for?
Normally, you will go through the company and ask for the report. But we can get the planning staff to follow up with that.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, right.
Planning staff could get that report from Oldsmore and talk with people at Oldsmore. Were they satisfied with the work that they did?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you needed from us for tonight?
Yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll schedule the workshop.
Any further discussion? Any audience comments? All right, next we go on to staff reports. City clerk.
We have city
Nope,
manager.
sorry, that's right.
It's just a very quick update.
Yeah, item 6C, the city manager's expense reports, Commissioner Grove.
Yeah, I've not just, it's been on every agenda. I'll have an update at the next meeting. Will take us through and probably be the last one that we do. I have some previous weeks that I just didn't get around, I just didn't have time to review for tonight.
Yeah, and given the agreement that we had tonight, this does take time from the accounting staff, so if you want to dispense with this from here on forward, I will at least get one of the items out of Sheila's list. So,
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll finish what was sent, and I'm okay
right.
for others.
Now, this was approved by motion, right? So we do need a motion to terminate the request.
Is that what you're going to do? You want to terminate getting the expense reports?
Effective whenever.
But, okay, so I thought the expense reports, I thought the original motion had to do with procurement.
But then it was modified later on to only have the expense reports submitted.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you did it by motion, you're going to
Undo it by.
Well,
stop it.
or do we want to end it on the last day of,
Or just leave it alone until
last day of employment?
2 weeks.
I'm good either way. I'd rather not have the staff go through stuff if they don't need to, though.
Right. Yeah.
I know Sheila's busy.
Yeah, she's busy and and this is budget time of year.
Budget.
I'm okay.
I'd move to terminate the request for a review of the city manager expenses.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislavsky?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right.
And just to clarify, we'll finish what's been sent, and then nothing new. Peace. Thank you.
All right. Item 7, reports. City Clerk.
I am working on District 1 and District 3 qualification books. So that's exciting, guys. There will be an ad in the newspaper. Well, it won't be in the paper by the next meeting, so you won't see it. But yeah, so I'm putting that together for an October delivery and November's beginning.
When's the qualification period?
November 6th, starting at noon, to November 17th, ending at noon for District 1 and 3.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
City Manager.
Yes, I only have one report, and there are other positions that have been lingering up there, but there's one that is really time sensitive, which is the HR specialist, not the manager level, but the lower level position. We're ready to make an offer on that. It's somebody from the outside, and we're looking to bring in, but we need to have some staff in the human resources department.
And is the plan still to bring in the manager?
Correct. Yeah.
So in the budget, I thought I saw it was half ahead in HR and half ahead in finance.
Yeah, it's called human resources / financial specialist. So it's going to help human resources and finance. But at the beginning, until we hire the human resources manager, it's probably going to be more involved in the human resources side at first. It's going to help with payroll and those kind of things that will get things out of the finance area. So there's always somebody else to do payroll right now. Okay. And that's my only report.
So you need our approval.
For that hire?
Proceed.
Well, I think what we've been doing is I'm reporting what I'm doing and no objections and
No objections.
Right.
Okay.
I have no objection.
Okay, just to clarify.
Right.
Any objections?
No.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Grouse.
Well, actually, we touched on it a little bit earlier. I had some requests from some folks in my neighborhood to see if we could lift the watering restrictions, because there was quite a few areas of the neighborhood that were under salt water, and so we were able to get that taken care of, and so folks can do a little extra watering. I know there was a lot of damage to a lot of landscaping, so I appreciate the help there, and that's it.
Commissioner Grill.
Thanks. I say for District 2, similar. relatively, I call it relatively unscathed from the hurricane damage. Some locations, some had water come in, some up to the doors, but relatively unscathed. Lots of mostly landscaping and docks. People, particularly who were on the bay, had a lot of dock damage facing to the south and the east, right in the backside, right, Adrian, where Mr. Mayor, where you are, and that side.
That's rough.
Debris pickup is starting. I think it started Monday. I know many of the streets have been cleaned, but I think Waste Management is going above and beyond and picking up some things that were for the debris people, but they're at least in District 2, they seem to be very liberal in what they pick up and take away. And then we really, I'd say the overall issue we've got is street paving and you know, the areas that were waiting for paving really took a beating from the storm, so a lot of the sand washed out, particularly on the corner of 64th and Gulf Winds is really, we've got to get, we need to get the team out there and something, even if we need to do a cold patch. I mean, I think many of us drive on it every day, and it's just, it's pretty rough. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Kozlowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Hurricane Idalia showed us how vulnerable we are. Talking with city staff, they couldn't really say how many homes, but they say
the latest count was 67 homes.
Yeah, 67, and maybe up closer to 80.
That had water?
Yeah. So, and I suspect most of that was in District 3, in the Don area, Bell Vista area, and I'm not sure how much in...
Not too bad.
Not as bad in Paso Grill. So, you know, as we've talked about before, unfortunately, you know, District 3 is one of the lower lying areas. So, I mean, there's not only a lot of work to do, but a lot of thoughts as to how, you know, we, you know, get people to realize that, you know, we've been very fortunate for a lot of years. Very fortunate. I've kind of always said all it takes is a Hurricane 1. We don't forget about a 2 or a 3 or a 4. So, you know, when Ian was barreling at us at a 4, it's the first time I ever left the county, mainly because I could stay in touch. I felt like at least I'd be able to stay in touch with everybody. This one was, I mean, it was, what, 120 miles off our shore, the eye was, and it still did that much damage. So I kind of knew it was inches away. Our house came within an inch of the Florida room, and I'd probably have another 7 inches from there up to the main house, so I was right on edge. Came back, and I could tell where the water line was. You could tell where the debris is, and you could tell, I could tell by the silt that got carried up. It's amazing how much stuff even just floats in that water. So, you know, there's a lot of things to think about. You know, people are reinvesting in their homes that are on the ground level, and, you know, that's not really what FEMA wants us to do. I think we're going to be taking a look at the CRS and some of the guidelines. I know we've changed some of those things over the years, but we really got to think about how we're going to be truly resilient. And it's going to be painful and expensive for people. You know, I think back at that, the referendum that our county property appraiser came up with, the idea that to encourage people, because right now it's a discouragement for some people to consider raising your house up or tearing your house down and building a new house, even when you just look at what you're going to suffer from a tax standpoint, property tax standpoint. That is outstanding. I've done the numbers myself. It would actually cost me more over 30 years for the taxes than it would for the house itself. So I thought that was really a brilliant thing on the ballot. It passed by over 50%, but didn't get to the 60% threshold. And I think because of a few things. One is there was no one advocating for it. I mean, we did a little bit here, but typically when you have an election issue, typically there is someone, some groups that are advocating for it, and there was really nobody advocating for it. And I think just in hindsight, the wording of it was a little bit tough to understand exactly what I'm approving. And, studies show that if you're not really sure, you're going to vote no. And I think that alone probably didn't get it over the 60% threshold. But I think we have to find a way of making it easier for our residents to have some alternatives. And I thought that was really a great idea, to allow people to, if you're homesteaded and you've been homesteaded for a while, you want to continue to enjoy that luxury and not say, it's either that or I'm going to be afraid of getting flooded. I mean, and that thing kind of bridged the gap with both of those. So I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know, what it would take to get that kind of a thing back on the ballot. It's probably too late to get on the ballot for
this year.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe we talk with a property appraiser and see about, getting that back in the thought process of getting that back on and having some education to show people it wasn't going to hurt anybody. It wasn't going to lower your taxes. No one's going to get a, gift out of it, but you weren't going to get penalized. But, it's shocking. I drive through my neighborhood, but a lot of neighborhoods. When you think of how many homes, if we really got walloped by a hurricane, there's going to be a super majority of our residents they're going to be out for years. And when you even if you have the money to rebuild, you're not going to be able to get the workers and things to be able to get it going. That's why I was really concerned. I think I brought this up last time, is that, I don't like to think of worst case scenarios, but I mean, we do have to kind of protect our residents from issues. I mean, what can you imagine if 3/4 of our island was devalued and the property tax base just went down? And then we still have to have police, we still have to have fire, we have to have, all these services. And yet now we're not going to have an income to do it. So we really got to
it's bigger
think about how we're going to deal with this.
And just think of the
county. The county, too. I mean, it's not just the city, but the county, yeah. I mean, we would be
because the tourism, the revenue generators are gone.
Yeah. So, this was an eye-opener. I know Betty's here in the audience, and I know that, our neighborhood's really hurt, and a lot of people probably don't realize how badly it hurt. And it technically wasn't even a hurricane that hit us. Those were not even hurricane force winds. It was the way it came and this push. We're on the bad side of it, pushing it up into Tampa Bay. And so I know we got a lot of things to think about, but that one's kind of, we just can't lose sight of what we can do and how we can do it. And, time is of the essence too, because these things don't ever move fast enough to get things done. So.
Right, and with the insurance problems, with more and more people not being able to afford adequate insurance, and some taking the risk while they'll self-insure, then can you, if God forbid we have that, can you rebuild? What happens?
Yeah, and I know I've been talking with the city manager. The planning staff has been proactive, looking at the CRS and what we can do to deal with what FEMA wants us to deal with. I know a lot of people are not going to like it, but you keep on reinvesting and reinvesting when you're below the floodplain. It's just kind of gambling now. And it is a point in time where we've got to kind of catch up with all that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Moran?
Well, in following up, piggybacking on what Commissioner Frizzlowski said, we are in District 4 at the most vulnerable that we've ever been. And we are 3 easements away from getting beach renourishment. And I think we need to face this head on and decide how we're going to get those easements. There's a couple of ways to do it. And I'm asking the city attorney to explore the ways, whether it's eminent domain or working with the Army Corps of Engineers to change the language in the easement so that the property owners are feeling comfortable that the easement's only going to be granted for the specific purpose of renourishment and renourishment only, and not to give total public use to that easement. It's got to happen one way or the other. It sounds to me like from the meeting, it's either we get the easements or we're out of luck. We're out of luck. And we get another storm this year, there's nothing stopping it now. Yeah, right. It's a clear shot right at us. We didn't have a whole dune system get wiped out. We had half a dune system get wiped out because the other half's been gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we just keep adding to the walkovers because we just keep losing beach. So we have to do something, and it sounds like the common denominator, after we've all been to meetings, we've all heard somebody said this and somebody said that, and we can't get the straight story, it's still those 3 easements that stand in our way. Secondly, District 4, we changed the garbage pickup. We're no longer bringing those 50,000-pound garbage trucks down the alleys. Both commercial and residential, we sent a letter out. Kind of had a couple of things wrong in the letter. That's getting fixed. We have some hot spots. People concerned about, they're not picking my garbage up anymore. Why do I have to bring it to the street? So I met with Jennifer today and Waste Connections. And we talked to those folks for a while. They have been fielding calls from residents and working things out. I've suggested to Jennifer that we send out another letter. Part of this is communication and rollout, how we communicate it when we roll it out. And it was a real bumpy rollout, let's put it that way. So we're going to craft another letter that both, it's residential and then commercial. This is how the pickups are. These are what the options are for your cans. We need numbers on cans now because some people don't pay for trash pickup. Okay, so if they all bring their kids out to the street, they're getting free trash pickup. They're willing to go back to your backyard and go pick up your can for an extra $10. So if you're disabled, you can pay the extra $10 and you don't have to worry about bringing your garbage can out. So, but these are things that a lot of people don't know. So really, a lot of it is our messaging. We're going to work on that messaging, and I'll continue to work with the residents when they call in or have concerns. I've got contact information now for the Waste Connection guys. They know every alley. They know everybody's house. They know like the back of their hand. So working on that, and really, we don't have a plan just yet for how long we're going to keep that beach closed, but I just don't see how we can trust people to not try and use those walkovers. They want to get on top and take pictures because it's a clear shot now, and they'll get their way up there if we don't have a patrol. We have a deputy out there with lights on, and every once in a while I hear, the beach is closed. I mean, they're walking right in front of the car. It doesn't matter. So this is the kind of enforcement that's required. So, I mean, I don't know if you've talked to Mike Clark of Public Works or...
You know, Mike has been really, really out of pocket. He had a lot of water in his house, and he's trying to do that. One, his resurfaces, you know, I mean, we do need to have a plan as to when we're going to be able to, you know, remove those structures over there, so it's not a hazard, it's not an attractive nuisance.
We don't have any other holidays, big beach holidays coming up.
Fortunately,
Well, people were out. I went out Sunday morning, and there were people on the beach, and there was even someone fishing on the end of the jetty. I don't know. I must have climbed the fence.
We can go around it.
Right.
And they're just.
But there were plenty of people on the beach, and it was closed, and there was the crime tape was up, but someone had cut the crime tape, and my wife wanted to go talk to them. But
that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. So yeah, I have 2 items. One is on beach renourishment. We were at the meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers on Friday. Short answer is they're not going to be renourishing anytime soon. So they said their policy hasn't changed. They're simply changing how they're interpreting their policy. So it's not a legislative thing, it is an administrative thing. And they are choosing to interpret it in a way that they have never interpreted it like this in the past. So they are requiring 100% easements. Just to put in perspective, we have 3 for all of St. Pete Beach, 5 miles, and we got 3. The rest of Pinellas is just under 50%, right? So we're not in terrible shape. But ultimately, they said they're not going to do it. We've offered them multiple options. We asked them if they can separate Paso Grill out. That was one of the questions I asked them. It's like, you know, where Paso Grill is 4 miles almost from Upland Beach. Why can't you separate it? Nah, that's just not how we operate. We can't do that. You know, they choose not to do it that way. They said that they will not put, their reasoning is that they will not put federal money on private lands. The county offered to pay for 100% of the section that the Army considers private lands, so that the Army Corps would not expend any federal dollars on private lands, and they also turned that down. And so every option that we've given them, every opportunity to work with us, unfortunately, they're turning it down. This is not coming from the Jacksonville office. The Jacksonville office has been, I mean, he's lived his whole life in Florida. He's a Florida resident. He's been very accommodating. In fact, we had an agreement with the Jacksonville office up until 2 months ago, and then DC stepped in. So that's the status on that. Now we're still pursuing options with the county, but even if the county steps in and does the beach renourishment, we're looking at a minimum of 18 months. So it's not anytime soon. We're working with other elected representatives in Congress to see if we can make some progress that way. But there's not a quick solution on the horizon. And this is one of the things that we told the Army Corps months ago. This is exactly the situation like we had last week, 2 weeks ago, that this is what happens if you don't renourish. And there's places like Treasure Island, they're 4 years behind schedule. So, and then the second part, also related to the beach. I realize a lot of residents are wondering what's going on with, especially in Paso Grill, with the closed beaches, with the overpasses. You know, for the moment, they're not safe. You know, we're trying to determine what the best course of action is. As the city manager mentioned earlier today, once we have a course of action, we will let the public know. But for the moment, it isn't safe, so stop going there, right? And also keep in mind, you know, for example, our public works director, I mean, he's homeless right now. You know, so I would ask for a little bit more grace and patience from our residents. Frankly, I've been disappointed by some of the emails I've received. It's a difficult situation. We're doing the best that we can. It's not a single area of the city that was impacted. The whole city was impacted. I was down on 55th. There was sand covering the entire street. I mean, you couldn't get through the street without sand. You know, you look at down in Paso Grill Way, the pavers were popped out, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be taken care of, and we don't have any more staff than we had 2 weeks ago. So we have all of our staff doing all the work that they've been doing up until now, and now on top of that, they're also helping with everything else and trying to get everything back to normal how it was. So I'm just going to ask for your patience and for a little bit of grace and understanding. And that would be very much appreciated from everyone. So, unless we have anything else, this meeting is adjourned.